Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox.
Okay, well, this is, I guess, ArriveCan Week 2.0. We didn't really expect a strong carryover from last week, but nevertheless, here we are. It's been quite the day. And, we'll give Platinum Sniper one more shout out because he alerted us, he or she, I assume it's a he, alerted us to the press release or press conference that Michael Barrett and Andrew Scheer had earlier today. If you haven't watched that video yet, then you are a delinquent Northern Perspective supporter. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone has things to do. But go and check out that video after this because the Conservatives have had enough. And they want to haul in Christian Firth and Darren Anthony of GC Strategies into committee. They're tired of the excuses. There's no documentation. There is no proof that they have these alleged mental health illnesses and problems, whatever it is. I think they are just terrified of going in front of the Conservative firing squad. And who wouldn't be if you were a bad boy?
If you were Christian Firth, wouldn't you be absolutely petrified to answer Brock's questions?
I'd be petrified to even say hello to Brock.
Yeah.
So, he just looks at you with that Sicilian stink eye, and it just makes you feel guilty. So, I don't know if he's Sicilian or not, but he just has that look. And we are actually really excited that we got a back channel thank you from Kelly McCauley, who is the chair of the Standing Committee for Government Operations, for covering ArriveCan in the manner that we are. So that was actually really, really humbling and nice news that we got to hear today. So thank you to our contact who relayed that to us. It filled us full of butterflies, and it makes you feel connected to what's going on when you hear someone who's on the committee, never mind the chair of one of these committees, actually say thank you. So that's amazing. We do have some other things in the works that hopefully come to fruition, but we won't bother talking about them until we know that they are close to reality. But if they are, oh boy, we are excited to share those with you. What else do we got? So on that press conference, they, as I said, they announced that they were going to try to force Christian Firth and Darren Anthony to show up. How are they going to do that? Well, they went over that in the Standing Committee for Government Operations meeting that met today. It was originally scheduled to be about ArriveCan and have a witness testify, and we were watching that very, very closely, and this morning it started to get updated by the clerk of the committee. And what it ended up morphing into was committee business, where Andrew Scheer showed up as an alternate member to actually present this motion. And the motion was for Christian Firth and Darren Anthony to appear before the Standing Committee of Government Operations, aka OGGO, within 14 days. And if they do not, then the sergeant-at-arms and the authorities would get involved to go and arrest their behinds, their butts, whatever vernacular you want to use, and haul them into committee to testify. So it was amended by Garnet Genuous later to 21 days. And what was very surprising was that the Bloc actually gave the Liberals a dressing down in committee today. That was very, very surprising. But you won't have to just take our word for it. We are going to do a video on that tomorrow morning. And we'll be releasing that probably around lunchtime. So you'll be able to see the highlights. We're not going to show you the whole committee, but there were some very interesting interactions between the Liberals, the Conservatives, some clapbacks by Andrew Scheer, Michael Barrett, and Garnet Genuous, and then as I said, like the NDP giving the Liberals like a good scolding for about 2 or 3 minutes. It was fascinating to see, but it looks like all the opposition parties are still standing together going into the third week of February now. That's significant. So anyway, so that will be that will be another video for all of you tomorrow. And the other thing that we want to make sure that everyone double check you are still subscribed to Northern Perspective. Double check you have your notifications turned on for Northern Perspective. Some people are seeing that their notifications were actually turned off for some reason. And on our back end, it looks like only 16% of the total subscribers have notifications turned on. So double check that so you get notified of the live stream, so you get notified of the videos and community posts that we happen to put down.
And we also have a Discord channel called New Videos that you can sign up for the notifications on Discord, so that even if your YouTube is acting a little bit funny, you'll still get a notification whenever we drop a new video or a live stream.
So we have we had a couple of members join right before the stream. I don't think I can go back that far, but thank you so much to those that did. And we have a $5 super chat from Mr. Excuses. Is that Trudeau? No, it's not Trudeau. Freeland news is crazy today. Yeah, I heard there was some news dropping about Freeland. So we'll no doubt we will get into that later this week. Assuming we have some time in between all the ArriveCan scandals going on. So
too many scandals for two people to keep track of, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Barnaby will be joining us shortly, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Let's see. It looks like, yes, Barnaby will be joining a little bit later today. But standard live stream rules apply. Fox, you want to go through that quickly?
Sure. Since tonight is a committee live stream, and we anticipate that it's going to run at least 3.5 to 4 hours. Unfortunately, we won't be able to answer general questions in the chat, but we will be addressing super chats. What else? That's the major one.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Please be kind to each other, and let's get this show on the road.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that...
there's Barnaby.
Oh, yeah. About time you showed up.
Barnaby, I hear Peter H. Is out for your girl, so, you might have some competition there.
Oh, snap. Oh, snap. So, all right. Well, let's get going, everybody. And I'm not going to say by popular request, we've had many people say that the Auditor General statement was the exact same as the previous 4 times, or however many times she's been at committee or the last week. So we're not going to show that. We know the audio issue, there's some audio issues early on. So we've skipped right to when questions begin. And hopefully that's past all of that. It's about 8 minutes in. But if there are audio issues, it's not us, it's committee. So we'll just get right into it. And the Colonel with a last-minute $2 super chat. Hey, Fox and Cypher, you will be mad with this one. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't seen this one. So I will try to keep the cursing to a minimum.
All right. Well, let's get into it.
I'll now turn to our first questioner. Mr. Barrett, you have the floor for up to 6 minutes, please.
The Auditor General said, and I quote, "The Public Health Agency of Canada did not develop project objectives and goals, budgets and cost estimates, assessments of resource needs, or risk management activities." Ms. Jeffrey, did you develop a budget for ArriveCan?
There was governance established around ArriveCan, but it focused on the public health deliverables and the nature of the border measures that needed to be put in place and operational through the app.
Okay,
but there was no overall project budget established, as should have been the case in IT projects.
No budget. Was there a projection of the expected cost?
There were initial contracts put in place, but incrementally, as you're aware, those contracts were added to and were administered in sequence. So there was no overarching budget that covered those costs.
Do you believe this failure to have a budget is the reason that the cost of this project ballooned to at least $60 million for taxpayers?
When we look at the situation in Canada in March 2020, it was a novel pandemic, and the timelines and the nature of the response that would be required were not known. This was an evolving situation. I recall when we looked at how...
I appreciate your response, though it is not an answer, and you'll have noted in the Auditor General's report that the pandemic was not an excuse or justification for the rules to be thrown out the window.
Indeed, it is not. And isn't it interesting how already the liberal talking points are coming out? It's like how, we need to play like ArriveCan bingo now. It's an evolving situation. It was a tumultuous time. Like if anyone had those on their bingo card, check them off.
Well, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. Canada should have been prepared for a pandemic, any pandemic, not necessarily this one. And I mean, especially after SARS back in the early 2000s, we should have had a pandemic plan in place. That way, every government department knew exactly what was going to be expected of them and what they were going to have to do if there was a novel virus or novel bacteria or something that was causing illness in Canada.
And I'm also disturbed, though not surprised, to hear that there was no project budget. Because why would we need a budget for an IT project, which is typically one of the most expensive types of projects that you see in an organization? Who needs a budget when we're playing with taxpayer money, right? Like, this is, okay, I see why we're going to get angry here. But I imagine this isn't for the reason that you're talking about. Anyhow, we have a $5 super chat from DanDeman966. Thank you very much. If I'm Firth, I would be scared as well. Also, Khalid gets really annoying and tries to interrupt Brock, and Brock laughs back. Well, thank you very much. Try not to spoil it, though, for us.
Yeah, we haven't seen this yet. We saw the other committee meeting today where they were squabbling about the motion that the Conservatives had put forward, which we'll do a video tomorrow. But this is all fresh for us. So. And
we're real behind in likes, everybody. We're at 1,277 viewers with 638 likes. So please, 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 let's get those likes up. And last but not least, we have Goko Donnie with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you so much. And Bones with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships, as well as the Colonel with a $2 super chat. Can I say I told you so yet? Yes, you can say you told us so.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Colonel. All right, back to it.
Your agency owned this app for almost the entirety of the pandemic, and you never developed a cost estimate for it. Did you do any performance reviews on it, quarterly or every 6 months, every year? Did that happen?
The operations of the app were evaluated through a governance structure that included Director General, ADM, and Deputy Management Committees on border services, and we assessed the operational results of the app as we went.
But the cost to Canadians was never included in a single review by your department. Is that correct?
The documentation of the cumulative cost was not a part of the documentation of that governance, correct?
Wow. So we don't care how much it costs. That's what they're saying. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the same Public Health Canada executives that got paid a combined bonus amount of $314,000 for this. Not all of it was related to ArriveCan, but you have to assume that a good portion was. So evidently, what that means is fiscal responsibility is not included in their bonus objectives either. Very telling. Very telling. Mr. Excuses with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. Budgets are just a state of mind, bro.
The budget will balance itself.
That was a great one. Just me, Nicole, good to see you with a $10 super chat. Please hit the like. It's the only free thing we have left. You got that right. We don't charge you for likes, and we don't intend to, but it really helps us out. Even with the extra 100 likes, we popped up another 100 viewers. So, more and more Canadians need to be seeing this. So let's see if we can match the views with the likes. It's a constant struggle we have. Goko Donnie with a member comment for 4 months. I deliberately avoided any news until I could get caught up here. Honkity honk honk. Thank you so much. Richard Weeb with a $7 super chat. Just when Justin and Sophie have sex, why is Sophie always on top? Because Justin always F's up.
Oh,
wow.
man.
Wow.
Oh, that was brutal.
I can't say I disagree with it.
Wow. Good one.
Hopefully YouTube doesn't ding us for that one.
I hope not.
Robert McFallon, good to see you back with a $10 super chat. So the Liberal response to any existential threat is panic and waste money, then cover up. What a bunch of crap. I think that basically is a very accurate summation of the Liberal government. Hartsinger with a $28 super chat. Thank you so much. To the tune Wagon Wheel. Brock them, Larry... Brock them, Larry, like a prosecutor. Brock them, Larry, make them tell the truth. Hey, Brockinator, Brock them, Larry, like climate change. Brock them, Larry, off the gravy chain. Hey, Brockinator versus coming. Okay, so we got more coming. Thank you so much for that, Hartsinger. Okay, let's see what else we have to get angry at.
Who is the minister ultimately responsible for the Public Health Agency of Canada?
The Public Health Agency of Canada is part of the health portfolio and reports to the Minister of Health. But the contracts that were put in place were put in place.
Who was the Minister of Health that oversaw the development of the ArriveCan app?
The ArriveCan app was jointly developed between the Public Health Agency and the Canadian Border Services Agency.
During the time that the ArriveCan app was first developed, who was the Minister of Health?
At the outset of the pandemic, the Minister of Health was Minister Haidu.
The Auditor General said your agency was responsible for setting the governance structure, which you referenced, which are the rules, procedures, and processes for ArriveCan. This was your duty at PHAC. That's correct?
Yes.
If PHAC is part of the health portfolio, and the Minister of Health was Minister Haidu, then as the minister, she's responsible for this major failing. There was no good news in the Auditor General's report for the government, for the Ministry of Health, or for the Public Health Agency of Canada in that report.
I just want to say, if you look to the left, you can see Kelly McCauley, and when he's not in a chair position, he looks grumpy. Like, he looks very, very grumpy right now.
I'd be grumpy too if I was him. I mean, you've got these executives getting bonuses for what you would assume would be doing a good job, except they did a terrible job. And this app went, like, what was it, 700 times over budget?
750 times, yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, like, if you went 100% over budget, you would be fired. If you went 50% over budget, you'd probably be fired.
Sometimes even if you go like 10% over budget.
Yeah, if you're in double digits in terms of percentage, something's wrong. So yeah. Anyway, Platinum Sniper graces us with his appearance. Thank you so much. Please go to the end on this one. The chair spoilers. Yeah, we have heard that multiple times. We definitely plan to do that.
Thank you, and thank you again for alerting us to the press conference with Barrett and Mr. Scheer.
We have Kimberly Patterson with a $7 super chat. Thank you so much for that. If you had a message to say, you can go ahead and give that to Barnaby. Stacy Northern Aurora Treasures with a member comment for 4 months. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cyphered Fox, for all you do. Love your breakdowns of our messed up government. You are so welcome for that. And we have Mike Bamlett with a $5 super chat. It's really starting to look like the Trudeau party is going scorched earth. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. The NDP... It's becoming more and more apparent that they are just stepping quietly away, like Homer Simpson, into the hedge. They're not. They just don't want to be associated with this anymore, and they're just moving over to the conservative driveway in Springfield so they can start lobbing grenades over.
So, do you recognize that this is a major failing? This $60 million boondoggle.
Mr. Chair, we certainly recognize that the failure to put in place formal project governance at the outset of this project led to inadequate oversight of the project and meant that the costs were not appropriately tracked as they were developed. And we have put in place numerous measures to ensure that this does not happen again. It was a large public health emergency.
I would say that not only was there a failure, it's not acceptable that they weren't tracked. The total cost, is not acceptable. Initial estimates at $80,000 and ballooning to $60 million with single source contracts and, two guys in a basement being paid, $20 million. These are failures. So the minister failed.
The contracts that were put in place were administered by the department.
So let me just be very clear, Ms. Jeffrey. If this is a failure, who is accountable for departmental failures? Is the minister responsible for what goes on in the department?
You know what's really bothering me, and maybe this is why people were saying that we're going to get mad, is the tone in which this lady's answering. The way she's answering is literally just, well, the department, the departments were responsible. This was a public health emergency. Like, she's just literally throwing out obvious talking points, and just the disrespect she's showing, never mind committee, but Canadian taxpayers. It's frankly disgusting. And I expect this is going to be her tone all the way through.
Well, and it seems like this is the attitude that all of these executives have. Like, think of Catherine Tate from the CBC. It was, oh, poor her, and they don't get enough money. They don't get enough taxpayer money. And now this, like, these executives don't seem to understand, like, normal life for Canadians. Like, you guys are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a mess of everything. That's not normal. That's not okay.
Yeah, and they don't care. And, this is the same Public Health Canada that, lost $150 million earlier this year. Oops, gone. And yeah, just wait till a responsible government gets in. Couple super chats to get to. Listless Receptionist, thank you so much for a $2 super chat. Remember, the economy is people. Great job, Northern Perspective. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And Trish Pearl with a $7 super chat. Of course the budget will balance itself when you don't set one, right? How can you have a deficit when you don't even estimate what it'll cost in the first place? And we got to Mike Bamlett on that one. We have a $2.79 super chat from Sloppy Sleuth. Thank you so much for that. Every dollar is helpful and every dollar is appreciated. Jarsha, nice to see you with a $5 super chat. Maximus Decimus Meridius. Are you not entertained? Kelly McCauley. Not even a little bit. That's a good one. Thank you so much.
We have a few more here. We have Bob Herkmer gifting 10 Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very much. And we have Louise A. King with a $5 super chat. Thank you. It says, Cypher, you might as well take your glasses off now and just leave them on the table.
Oh, snap,
yeah, you don't
Louise.
want to break them because otherwise you can't see.
Oh, snap, Louise. Oh, snap. Okay, well, I guess we'll see. All right, I think that's everything, and let's get back to it. Actually, there's a
few more just came in. We have LC with a $2 super chat. Thank you very much. Says, you guys have been working more than ever, LMAO. Yeah, we don't really sit still, do we?
Well, if they would stop.
Yeah, if these liberals stop churning out scandals, then maybe we could have like a date night, but
Yeah, it'd be nice to be like a little bored, maybe when the Conservatives get in. So, fingers crossed for that. Massive Aggressive with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much for that. And Endergate member for 3 months. Love Barrett's laptop sticker. Mighty OGGO. Yeah, that's.
Oh, yeah, with a goose. That's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Okay, let's get back.
As the deputy head of the organization,
who does the deputy head report to?
The deputy head reports to the clerk of the Privy Council and to the minister, depending on the subject, and
to the minister
that's being delegated.
To the minister, and the authority and responsibilities are delegated from the minister. This is the minister's failure, and that's what's been evidenced in the reporting by the Auditor General.
Okay, so You can see the objective right out of the gate by the Conservatives tying the failure of the ArriveCan app now to the Minister of Health, because it was a joint app between the CBSA and Public Health Canada, which means it was a joint venture. Sorry, that just brought back shades of Cordex and Dalian when they used to say that all the time. But it was a joint venture between the Minister of Public Health and Safety and the Minister of Public Health. So there you go. So that would have been Bill Blair and Minister Haidu. So Humble Tracker with a $50 super chat. Great to see you. Freedom is the open window through which pours the sunlight of the human spirit and human dignity. Is freedom anything else than the right to live as we wish? Nothing else.
That's a beautiful quote. Thank you very much.
Humble Tracker can always be counted on with the amazing poetry that is very fitting for any subject that we're covering. Thank you very, very much for that. Hunsford with a $20 super chat. Good morning. I hope all is well. About 25 minutes behind. I'm watching from work again. Missed your past few videos whilst on vacation in Quebec. I'm back home now. Unfortunately, I'm almost caught up. Back home now, unfortunately. I'm almost caught up, though. Namaste. I thought you said, unfortunately, you're almost caught up. Or maybe that's a bad thing because you ran out of content to watch. I don't know. Anyway, all right.
Well, I hope you had a nice vacation. It sounds
And
like fun.
welcome to NP supporter Duggernaut. Clever name, sir.
You're spot on. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Turning now to Mr. Chen. You have the floor for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The emergency orders required the Public Health Agency of Canada to collect contact and health information from travelers entering Canada through the CBSA. We learned from the Auditor General that the report issued indicated that some resources who worked on subcontracts lacked the appropriate security clearance. As the Public Health Agency, I would like to hear your thoughts on this.
The specific contracts that were put in place were from the Canadian Border Services Agency, and a number of resources needed to be replaced given the length of the pandemic. The security and privacy considerations related to the data that was collected were reviewed through numerous assessments, including from the Office of the Privacy Commissioner. And the report was that the measures were complied with privacy and were necessary and proportional to the tasks that needed to be implemented.
In the Auditor General's report in 2021, it stated that the quality of information collected, as well as how quickly it was collected, improved over time with the ArriveCan app. Understanding the urgency within the context of the global pandemic, would you agree that the process of transferring from manual to digital base to collect contact and health information was needed?
Softball questions from Mr. Chen, who is obviously a Liberal. If you're interested in who he's a Liberal for, he is the MP for Scarborough North. So if you are a constituent from Scarborough North, take note of who you're not voting for in the next election. Nillik with a $5 super chat. That tone is annoyingly disrespectful. I hope Brock and the Dream Team takes her down a peg or two. You and me both, Nillik. Because, yeah, she's just very matter of fact. And it's like, well, what am I even doing here? So what? It was the pandemic. Who cares? And it's just very distasteful. Hold on to your hats. Don't want any spillage. Yeah.
Maybe you should take your glasses off now. You keep getting these vague warnings.
Yeah, if the stream just suddenly goes down, you'll know I got mad and hit a wrong button. LC with a $2 super chat. Her indifference is gross. It absolutely is.
That's a really good term for it.
The process of digitizing the information being collected was necessary to have a functional border and to facilitating the transit of critical services, people, and goods. For example, in the initial days with paper processing, it could take up to 14 days for data to be transferred and processed, and that data was critical to informing the day-to-day border measures, public health measures, and to providing data to our provincial and territorial counterparts for the administration of public health. With the digitization of this data flow and the app, that amount of time decreased to 48 hours on average. Without the app, it would have been impossible to manage the increase that we saw for May 2020, where we had about 1,000 travelers a day, to January 2023, where we were able to manage 50,000 travelers a day, with processing time that dropped from 7 minutes per traveler to 2 minutes, a really important difference at both air and land borders.
Could you share and enlighten us in respect to the move from manual paper-based to digital? A lot of digitization has happened across government. Is this something that PAC had considered along with CBSA to bring the manual paper-based information online or to an app for collection prior to the pandemic?
I believe my CBSA counterparts have commented on this, but a digital border is very important for the flow of people and goods in a modern economy. So CBSA had indeed been considering the need to move to further digital processing at the border. But with the layering of public health measures and the importance of the border in delaying the entry of variants and monitoring the flow of travelers and of COVID-19 into Canada, it was really critical that those submissions be done in a digital way. So there was a very clear public health rationale for the need to move quickly in the development of the app. By the end, we had 60.3 million digital submissions before measures were lifted.
My understanding around the time frame was that there was 47 days between the pandemic being declared to the launch of the ArriveCan app. Has your department ever had to turn around a project this quickly, as it did with respect to going from manual to digital based?
This was an unprecedented time, and the speed of the response was really critical given the speed at which the virus moves and the need to facilitate essential travel. The Public Health Agency of Canada did not have the expertise to develop an app of this nature. And for this reason, asked the Canadian Border Service Agency to work on the development of the application, while the Public Health Agency focused on the analysis of the measures that needed to be put in place, the implementation of the Quarantine Act and the Orders of Council that really stood up the requirements that needed to operate at the border. It was a collaborative partnership. We worked very closely together in the governance of those arrangements.
So let me get this straight. She said that the reason why public health didn't actually build the app is because they didn't have the expertise. So they turned to CBSA, who also didn't have the expertise.
Yeah, this makes no sense. Why, instead of going to CBSA, which is another government department, who also did not have the expertise and then had to contract and subcontract, why didn't they just find their own contractors?
Yeah, just saying. But also Trudeau hired, over 100,000 new public service employees. Couldn't find one of them. One of those people couldn't build the app. Oh, I guess we didn't hire the right people then, but that doesn't count. David Edwards with a $5 super chat. Separated at birth, Michael Barrett and Republican Senator Josh Hawley. Look high up.
Look him up.
Oh, look
Yeah.
him up. You will see what I mean. Looks and tactics. I actually know who Josh Hawley is, and yes, I believe that you were right. They must be separated. At
Yeah,
birth.
I had to look
They're both
kind of
silver
like from
foxes.
when you sent the super chat to now, and yeah, he looks like just a Michael Barrett with brown hair.
Yeah. And thank you very much, Sloppy Sleuth, for sending Barnaby your super chat intent. Whenever Jeffrey doesn't answer a question from three conservatives or from the conservatives, you drink. Prepare for liver damage. Love you all.
Well, you know
goodness.
us, we don't condone liver damage over here, so if you are playing a drinking game, please be careful.
There you go. And LC with a $2 super chat. Words, blah, blah, words, blah, lies. Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
And Kevin Vera with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. And again, if you meant to type something, send that over to Barnaby, and we'll get to it later, just like Sloppy Sleuth. Jack Bandol Fox, please give Psycher a hug after this live stream. He's gonna need it.
Oh, I will.
Oh goodness, this is gonna be interesting. Rob Barkhouse with a $2 super chat. Chan's questions make me want to be violent. Yeah.
Don't be violent, please.
And Katie Cat with a $7 super chat, hoping this will help wash down the liberal medicine that they are trying to feed to all of us. Thank you for all you do, Northern Perspective Cheers. You guys are like on fire with the super chats. It's just, I think it's to make this bearable, isn't it? That's why you guys are sending in all these excellent jokes. It's fantastic. Joan5656 with a super chat. She's probably writing her grocery list between questioning with that pen she keeps twirling. Yeah, no doubt that she probably doesn't have to pay carbon tax on. And Peter G with a $2 super chat. Sounds so scripted between her and the Liberals. Oh, 100%. I completely agree. That's what I mean. These are all softball questions, and it just sounds so rehearsed. Diane Sylvain, nice to see you with a $10 super chat. Hi, awesome Cypher and Fox. Who cares about this robotic witness bragging about all that what was done? I think she is on medication. Where's the funds?
Where's the funds indeed?
WTF. And we have a couple more super chats. One more from Gokodani. How did any of these useless tools get their jobs? You'd have to add them all together to get a double-digit IQ. Wow. Yeah, and I was just looking up Heather Jeffrey, and she started way back in 1996. So it sounds like she's just a career government person. She's been in government for, 28 years? And she doesn't look like she's in her 60s, so...
But that's almost as long as I've been alive.
There
That's
you go.
nuts.
But this is what happens. These people, they started a lot, they've never had a real job in a real company, so they start at the government, and they suck what they're doing, and then they're just shuffled along. So, there's got to be some good ones in there, but my goodness. Wilson Weber with a $10 super chat. I think Heather is hoping to put the committee to sleep with her monotone voice. So friggin' boring. Plus, I think she learned from JT on how to speak. Yeah, she almost sounds like she could be like Ben Stein's daughter, the way she speaks, if you know who Ben Stein is. And LC gifted 5 Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you so much. Let's get to it.
Given everything that's happened, the discussion that we are having today, the report from the Auditor General, what do you think is the biggest lesson that PAC has learned from this experience that will help it move forward and perhaps give Canadians some reassurance that the issues and recommendations identified by the AG are being taken seriously?
It is clear that while this was an emergency that pointed to the need for us to rapidly develop tools that we did not have, that having in place the necessary governance with clear roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities, project budgets, and gating would have been essential to ensure that there was adequate oversight of the development of this application from the outset. As a result, we have put in place specific measures in our planning for future emergencies and pandemics to ensure that that is a standard operating procedure. And we are also taking measures to make sure that we have appropriate tools, standard operating procedures, and emergency responses that will allow us to train and ensure our personnel are able to deploy what were a wide range of new measures and tools that were required for COVID-19 in a more expedient way and to adapt them to future crises.
Thank you very much. Suivant, c'est Madame Sinclair-Desgagnés. Vous avez la parole pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair.
Barnaby, this is the block lady that we're trying to set you up with. So get away. I'm not even going to say the Liberals' name. Just get away from her and focus on this lady. I think if Chen comes on again, I don't think anyone is going to object. I'm probably just going to skip past him because they're not even softballs. It's like a t-ball question that he keeps serving up to her. So that's all I think we're going to do. Anyhow, Gamble God of War with a $5 super chat. Good to be back. Got the family watching and getting them to see what's really going on tonight. Looking forward as the dominoes fall. Thank you so much. And hello, God of War's family. Please be kind to all us mortals. Humble Tracker with a $10 super chat. Lock up your libraries if you like, but there is no gate, no lock, no bolt that you can set upon the freedom of my mind. Keep that coming, Humble Tracker. I think we're all feeling more cultured and intelligent as you send those along. Nillik with a $5 super chat. Don't worry, Cypher. I'm just as frustrated as you are, but I'll sit through this hell with you. LOL. Hope this helps as much as watching this hurts. Oh, you guys are too much. Thank you so much.
And we're about 550 likes behind, so please hit that like button. It helps push the stream out to other Canadians who need to see exactly what is going on within our government.
We managed to hit over 2,000 viewers twice last week. Let's see if we can get up over that if we match those likes. Thank you so much, everybody. Like.
Thank you, witnesses, for being here for another session of interesting questions following the report tabled by the Auditor General. Ms. Jeffrey, on several occasions during your remarks and when responding to questions here, you talked about the fact that the pandemic was an urgent situation and as if it were an excuse to act fast. Here, we have a contract from Health Canada, contracts that were signed with GC Strategies in January 2019 following a non-competitive process. The amount is 104,000. So we suppose that to go from one amount to another, there's a procurement process that should be respected. Could you provide us details with these types of contracts that PHAC or Health Canada had with GC Strategies? And if so, why was GC Strategies selected for these contracts? Thank you very much for the question. I can assure you that the Public Health Agency of Canada did not sign any contracts with GC Strategies.
Vous me confirmez?
Never. You are confirming that it never happened. Public Health. For example, Mr. Crummins, what can you tell us when you were at the Treasury Board? What can you tell us about any contracts that could have been signed with GC Strategies when you were at the Treasury Board?
So I'm not aware of any contracts that the Public Health Agency of Canada has entered into, and so I don't have details of contracts that they would have had with other departments or agencies.
Donc, vous n'avez aucun souvenir?
So you do not remember any such thing when you were at the Treasury Board?
So when I was at the Treasury Board Secretariat, I was in the program sector presenting TV submissions to Treasury Board ministers. I was not responsible for app development or contracting at that time.
D'accord, donc aucun souvenir. Parfait.
All right. I'm just taking a pause here.
While you're doing that, I have to comment, that guy had an epic beard.
Yeah, he rivals the IDOMO guy. So in my list, and it's incomplete because of the terrible data that's on opengovernment.ca, I do not see public health on the list of agencies that signed contracts with GC Strategies. I do see Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, Natural Resources Canada, Office of the Secretary to the Governor General, Public Health or Public Safety, Treasury Board, Courts Administration Services, Transport Canada, CBSA has the lion's share, unsurprisingly. Global Affairs Canada, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, National Defence, they had 2 contracts. One of those was non-competitive. That's interesting. Employment and Social Development Canada, Innovation, Science, Economic Development. That's Champagne's division, by the way. Infrastructure Canada, Department of Justice Canada, and Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. So those are all of the ones that I see so far. And no doubt there are more. So that's just something for everyone to chew on. And we're still 400 likes behind. Please, 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 let's get those up. Don't like it because you like it. Like it to ensure that YouTube pushes this out to more people. LC with a $2 super chat. You guys make this bearable. We love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For that. David Edwards with a $5 super chat. Good lord. Put the video on double speed so I can stop punching my own face.
Oh no.
Oh, here we go. Pandemonium with a $5 super chat. A little late to the party, but I came, I watched, I liked. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Be like Pandemonium and like the video.
And like it again.
Very well. You don't remember anything. Okay, in that case, let's ask questions about the application. COVID Alert. What can you tell us about that application, COVID Alert?
So I can answer that. The COVID Alert app was developed as a tool to help limit the spread of COVID-19. It was downloaded about 6.9 million times. More than 58,000 users entered keys into that app. The idea was that it would provide an extra tool to allow Canadians to identify when they might have been exposed to COVID-19. The app was eventually sunset and retired on the 4th of April, given...
Possible de parler plus clairement.
Could you please speak a bit louder and more clearly, please? I'm sorry.
The COVID Alert app was a tool to help Canadians monitor any potential contact or exposure that they had. It supplemented the contact tracing that provinces and territories and local public health had put in place. The way the app worked was that one-time keys were generated when people tested positive through a PCR test for COVID-19, and those that downloaded the app that had been in proximity to those individuals received notifications that they could have been
Question très
exposed.
simple. Est-ce que vous étiez donc la...
Simple question. So PHAC was responsible for this application. What was the responsibility of the different departments?
The agency was not responsible for the COVID Alert app, although we assisted in the development of the public health rationale and its functioning. The COVID Alert app was, I believe, initially developed by the Treasury Board Secretariat and in conjunction with Canadian Digital Services.
So, question's going to come up. Why couldn't they do the ArriveCan app if it was done internally at Treasury Board Services? So wait a minute. So you guys, you didn't have the skill set, so you asked CBSA to to build the app when they didn't have the skill set, even though you just had an app built that was called COVID Alert by Treasury Board. Does this not make sense to anybody else?
I remember that app. It was lousy. They said like less than 2% of people were using it properly, where that if you got a positive test, you would enter your information into the app and then it would alert the people you've been close to.
Well, then it sounds like it works as well as the ArriveCan app did.
Pretty much.
Which is not very well at all. So, but at least you'd be doing it for cheaper.
But my point is, like, they make these silly apps for what they think is a good idea, but in practicality, nobody uses them. Nobody wants them. Nobody uses them. It's just a waste of money.
Then the problem is, what if you don't have a smartphone? What, you're just screwed? You can't travel? Sorry, that doesn't fly.
I don't think they were taking that as an excuse for people who were coming into the country. Even if you weren't a Canadian citizen, you had to have the ArriveCan app on your phone. You had to know how to use it. Even if you didn't have to have a phone, like you had to use it. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Anyway, Andrew Buckland with a $5 super chat. This is a usual case of ideologues believing they're entitled to launder taxpayer dollars because they're on the right side of history. Jail them. Don't disagree with that. Mr. Excuse is back with a $2 super chat. GC strategies equals guaranteed cash strategies. Yeah. Or governmental corrupt strategies. I don't know. Yeah, you could have fun with that one. We have Daryl Campbell with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Here's a little bit towards a couple message or towards a couple's massage. You guys might need it after this meeting. I am watching it again so I can see if your avatars turn red.
Oh no. I'm like legit scared of what's going to happen. You guys keep giving us like these cryptic warnings.
Oh, that's great. And Canadian Patriots with a $2.79 super chat. Thank you so much. 6,000 for fur and claws to be trimmed.
I think that's referring to
for
Freeland. Yeah, we haven't actually seen the article or the news information about this yet. That's on our list for tomorrow.
And Chris Accurate with a $2.79 super chat. Liberals have the greatest success at failures. Yeah, that's one thing that they're really great at is failing.
Task failed successfully.
Combien de temps j'ai encore, Monsieur le Président?
How much time do I have left, Mr. Chair? 1 minute, 20 seconds. Thank you. Could you tell us about something else? It's still very vague. The arrival of Mr. MacDonald. He was transferred, I believe, from the Canada Border Services Agency to Health Canada. He was in Health Canada, yes. Well, let's let that go.
No, let's not let it go. Let's not let it go. You think that's a coincidence that Cameron MacDonald was in the Canada Border Services Agency, squeezed them for all they could through all these contracts with GC Strategies, and then was magically promoted to, I think he's an ADM in Public Health Canada right after ArriveCan was done? That's supposed to be a coincidence. And it's also supposed to be a coincidence that Diane Daly, who, may have been the one that was actually doctoring all of these financial records to hide the cost of the ArriveCan app per the Auditor General's report, that she ended up in Public Health Canada as well. I don't believe in coincidences when it comes to this type of corruption. Anyhow, that's just me pontificating there. LC with a $2 super chat. Where are the consequences?
I think they're coming.
Yeah,
I think they're coming. I think this is too big just to let go. And if government is dissolved before the conclusion of this ArriveCan investigation, the Conservatives are going to pick it right back up.
And it'll be 10 times worse because they'll have full control over committee.
Yeah, 100%.
DMAC, nice to see you back. Member comment, GC Strategy still has a website. I checked today. Yeah, they do. And ArriveCan's still on it. Peter G with a $5 super chat. Sorry, Cypher. Looks like Sinclair, Digania has a ring on her hand. Oh, that never stopped anyone.
Well, Barnaby has a ring on his hand too, to be fair, but we're just trying to keep him away from Khalid.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, back to it.
We actually have one more super chat from Northern Liberty. Sorry, YouTube cut off the name there. Northern Liberty is what we can see. It says, thank you for existing for my mother's sake. My brand of Christian Republican nationalism can be a little overwhelming for her. You guys are a much better suit for my mom, the Boomer Con. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And David Edwards with a $2 super chat. And is either lying or a small vocabulary, or you went to Justin Trudeau's drama class.
And make sure you hit that like button. We are about 300 behind.
350 behind.
There you go.
But we're up to 1,800 viewers. See, as those likes go up, the viewers go up. So let's keep it going.
And as Barnaby says, every time you hit that like button, a Liberal loses their wings.
Concerning the COVID alert application, you had a role to play in that application, which was not widely used. And I know that some contracts concerning COVID alert were attributed to GC strategies. Maybe Health Canada was not directly responsible. If you were involved in any way in the management of that application, how come you were not aware of the fact that a contract was awarded to GC Strategies to develop that application?
Of the Public Health Agency was to help to inform the development of the app and the public health objectives of its development, namely to provide an additional tool for Canadians to have information to inform their risk management related to COVID-19. The evolution of the virus and the evolution of the testing methods being used in provinces and territories meant that once PCR testing was no longer the main method of informing Canadians that they had tested positive for COVID, that the app became of less utility.
Excusez-moi, vous répondez pas à la question. Je vous dis.
I'm sorry, you're not answering the question. I'm saying that the contract was awarded to GC Strategies. I'm sorry, your time is up. Your 6 minutes are up already. Mr. Desjardins.
Sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I too want to thank the Auditor General again for being present with us on this important topic. One, I think the Auditor General has heard my comments in the past that I believe is a failure on three fronts. One, a failure to deliver good management. Two, a failure to deliver the best value for Canadian taxpayer dollar. And three, the generational failure and the consecutive failure of governments to finally address the critical underfunding of the public service that has created a vulnerability to which our public service then is forced to contract very expensive and risky management companies, or app development companies in this case, to continue on robbing the public purse.
Okay. Desjardins, listen. The public service is not underfunded. That's not the problem. The right people are not being paid. That's the problem. And what I mean by that is that you have a bunch of incompetent people that are running the government in public service, and they're being paid to do it with taxpayer money. And they don't care about the taxpayer money. And the Public Service Alliance of Canada also doesn't care about taxpayer money, because in their view, their union members are never paid enough. So when you say that the public service is underfunded, that's completely incorrect. We hired 100,000 new public servants. We didn't hire the right ones in the right positions. That's the problem. And what that is indicative of is incompetent executives. And when you have incompetent executives, they typically hire incompetent people unless they get lucky. And those incompetent people are the ones that are actually running our government. And that's all I have to say about that. What I do have to say is thank you to Gokul Dani with a $10 super chat. It's hard to imagine a more stupid or dangerous way of making decisions than by putting those decisions in the hands of people who pay no price for being wrong. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And Iron Pelvis, that's
nice
interesting.
Name.
Does that mean you have a chastity belt?
Oh.
With a $2 super chat, the app was needed is a false premise. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that in the least. Just me Nicole back with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Can we bring back the tar and feather system? I would pay to see that. Yeah.
I think that's against the Geneva Convention.
Whatever. Bonnie Gunn joined for an NP supporter. Thank you so much for that. And LC with a $2 super chat. I'm a liberal. Does this count as a write-off? Maybe you're a write-off for your mental health. I don't know. And then last but not least, we have Mike Bamlett with a $5 super chat. New Survivor episode idea. Turn Trudeau and Freeland loose in Alberta. If they can make it through alive in 24 hours, then the cops can haul them to prison.
Now that I'd pay to see.
There you go.
See this time and time and time again. We've seen it in the Phoenix pay system. We've seen it double under the Conservatives outsourcing. And here we're seeing finally the consequences of a drastic and dramatically underfunded public service. I want to turn our attention to the graph that's outlined in figure 1.2. In Figure 1.2 on page 7 of the Auditor General's report, it suggests that the Canada Border Service Agency continued to rely heavily on external resources to develop ArriveCan from April 2020 to March 2023. You could see there in many instances, we're seeing it, at least in some cases, the doubling of the costs that would be associated with development of these kinds of apps internally to the government versus the cost that is present to the government when looking at external contracts. These external contracts ballooned dramatically. Look at the Phoenix Pay system today, in the billions of dollars originally contracted out by the Conservatives, and we're still dealing with that terrible decision today. And so now we're seeing the Liberals continue in that tradition, continue to underfund our public service, and continue to see what is the worst case scenario for Canadians. I also want to look at a very important fact that I think, now that the Public Health Agency of Canada is present here today, that I would like to point to. In the Auditor General's findings, it was found that there was actually an instance where the Public Health Agency and the Canadian Border Services actually undertook a process of jointly finding ways to develop this app. But what we found was in that process that they failed to actually come into an agreement of governance, an agreement of budget, an agreement of process, an agreement ultimately as to who was going to be overseeing and operating this project. To the president of the Public Health Agency of Canada, how could it have been for almost a year long that we've seen no formal agreement between Public Health Agency of Canada and the Canadian Border Services in regards to governance? Can you explain why?
He's like the little engine that could. He was making such terrible points, but he finally got to the top of the hill and he made a good point. So yay! Congratulations, Desjardins. We knew you could do it. Oh my goodness. So and that's the problem. Like with all of that preamble, you totally lost people and they probably missed your point. So the main point is in the Auditor General's report, it was stated that Public Health and the CBSA, Canada Border Services Agency, couldn't come to an agreement on how to actually put together some governance to manage this app and the project, which is what we see. So to his point, he's now saying, well, you guys were going back and forth for like over a year on this. Like, what was the problem? And this is the thing. You typically don't start a project until you know how it's going to be governed, especially when it's a joint venture between two different agencies. And how nice is it that Heather Jeffrey gets to sit back and say, well, we didn't select GC Strategies. We were just consulting on it. Yet we were responsible for the app. So you got to dictate what went into it, but you didn't have to shoulder any of the financial burden for it. How nice for you. How absolutely nice for you. What else is nice is we have a couple super chats come in. Bonnie Gunn with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. And that's your first on the live stream. And thank you for making it ours. And Clyde Do Something with a $10 super chat. Good to see you, Clyde. Beer is on me this time. Thanks for killing yourselves to get us all these details. Yeah, we're going to feel pretty dead after this week, Clyde. I'm not going to lie.
But it's for a good cause.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. To teach Canadians exactly what this government is doing.
Jarsha with another $2 super chat. This is Canada Fox. It's the Geneva suggestion here.
Oh, no.
Love it. And Pandemonium with a $5 super chat. For anyone that wanted a Clyde, we are sold out, but we are hoping to get a fresh stock any day now. Thank you very much for that. We got a couple more super chats that have come in, and let's start with Trish Pruill. Thank you very much, Trish. Once upon a time, it was cheaper to hire private companies, but not anymore. I used to work at a charity who had a program funded by the federal government, right? And AKLKV with a $7 super chat. What is Phoenix Pay System? Are they going on about attributing to the CPC? So the Phoenix Pay System is actually it's the payroll system within the government that they use to pay their government employees. What the government does, and it is annoying to probably everybody that actually works in the government, is they take things that are known in the private sector and they give them stupid names. Right? So, like, they give their HR system a name, they give their payroll system a name. So they'll take something, they will completely customize it, and then they'll call it their own silly label. And they make up terms all the time, and it's just to make themselves feel like, oh, well, it's ours and we built it. Well, not really. And you're just confusing things even more than it already is. So that's Phoenix, and Phoenix was developed under the Conservative government. When, this is the thing, they need to just buy a system that is scalable for organizations the size of the federal government. The federal government seems to think like they're the only really, really large organization with hundreds of thousands of people. There are private companies like this all over the world.
And all over Canada, too.
Yeah. Like you have IBM, you have Microsoft, you have Google, you have Facebook, you have they're all over the place. So this isn't unique to the federal government. Maybe they should actually ask those companies what they do. But that would put some public service people out of a job, and are underfunded public service. So we have 420 hitter with a $2 super chat. Incompetence and stupidity should hurt more. Yes, it should. Hunsford with a $10 super chat. It was a great vacation. Hiked 1,213 feet up a mountain on a snow-covered trail. It is never unfortunate to watch your videos, other than the fact that they are about liberal corruption.
Oh, that sounds like a fun vacation, though.
Absolutely. Gokodani with a $5 super chat. When are you going to organize some swag merch? Any plans yet?
Right now, at this point, we feel that trying to start up a merch arm would probably distract from what we're doing, like actually on the channel. So it's kind of something that we're not looking into at the moment, but who knows what's going to happen down the line.
Yeah. Rico Suave with a $5 super chat. Can we get back to show, or can we get back to how the Treasury Board Digital Services Canada could build taps, right? Because they built one before. They built the COVID Alert app, so why couldn't they at least start on the ArriveCan app? See, and this is the problem with government is they don't think of things this way. So why didn't they go to Treasury Board and say, hey, can you build the ArriveCan app? And they could have responded, well, we can't build all of it because we don't have that total specialization. That's okay. Can you build the skeleton of it, and then we can get a third-party contractor in to build the other piece that you don't know how to build, and they'll be a lot cheaper than $60 million. Hey, that's a good idea. I'm a lawyer. So, that's the type of thinking that needs to go into this stuff.
That was like redneck champagne.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe he'll come back. Cheryl McCullough with a $10 super chat. Thank you for your excellent coverage and breakdown of these committee meetings. Great job from the Big Nickel. Well, shout out to Sudbury. Thank you very much.
And please, if you haven't done so already, hit that like button. It helps push the stream out so more Canadians can come and see this train wreck of a government.
Yeah, Clyde, if you wouldn't mind just logging out and back in 200 times, that would be great to give us that gap.
We've already acknowledged that it would have been appropriate, and certainly in future we will be putting in place formal governance. What I can say is,
no, it's certainly inappropriate, President. It's inappropriate that this took place. It's not appropriate. I would fail to use that word. I want to understand, why is it that the Public Health Agency undertook a process that didn't involve the appropriate level of good governance? It's established in the report that COVID-19 and the processes to which the Treasury Board undertook to waive or to make more expedient the outputs of the government at this time were not acceptable, is not an acceptable excuse to avoid good governance models. How is it, again, that the Public Health Agency, knowing that fact, that's a well-established principle of the Treasury Board, was able to come into an agreement with the Canadian Border Service Agency without a formal agreement on governance? Is this directly a failure?
there was close collaboration between the Public Health Agency and the Canadian Border Services Agency in the elaboration and development of ArriveCan. However, there was no formal project governance put in place and no documentation of those decisions, which the Auditor General has pointed out. We acknowledge that, and we believe that that is a best practice that should be put in place in all future crises, and we have taken steps to ensure that in all future responses, that this is part of our standard operating procedure and protocol.
Whose decision was it to not create a formal governance structure?
And okay, props to the NDP here. Yeah, you have to, again, once he got up the hill, he's good. He's gotten through his little diatribe, and now he's asking, good question after good question. Because I was about to say, if you're an executive and you don't think that it's a good idea, or you don't think to ask, hey, do we have documentation on this really important app for this really important purpose that we all agree is really important, that we have multiple agencies collaborating on, that is going to be used for the intake and outgoing travelers all across Canada. They like to brag that 60 million people use this. That's a lot of people. That's very important. So for an executive to sit there and say, well, we saw it in the Auditor General's report, and, we agreed that that's an industry best practice, and we're taking steps to do that from now on. No, that's not good enough. This isn't something new. This isn't like a good idea. This is something that you don't get to an executive position unless you know this. So that non-answer, that doesn't cut it. Not for the Canadian taxpayer that is living in a tent. Not for the Canadian taxpayer that is skipping meals. Not for the Canadian taxpayers that are literally living in cars. So that you guys can get paid $314,000 in bonuses to just sit up there and answer all nonchalantly, oh yeah, there wasn't any documentation, but we'll get it next time. Not good enough. Midian So with a $5 super chat. When a witness says, I do not know, the next question should be, okay, tell me who knows. Name the person. That's not bad. I don't disagree with that. Or if you're the head of the agency and if you're saying you don't know, then why are you in your job? That would be the other response. Kyle Stokes with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. I work in enviro and geotech drilling. I can fill you in with the context about the SNC Lavalin situation. It relates to the same kickback concept as ArriveCan, but this is how our industry operates. Very interesting. We have Curtis Spence with a $5 super chat. Did someone say merch? I would be in for a couple hoodies, just saying. Maybe in the future. Merch is not a uncomplicated thing to get into. Canadian Patriots with a $2.79 super chat. Did you like at Clyde? Do something.
Very nice.
There you go. Goko Dani with another $10 super chat. Thank you so much, sir. What do we all want to come from this? Can I take things I can't say on Twitter for 500, Alex? Yes, I think that question would be correct. And we have Peter G with a $2 super chat. Why do I feel she failed up to her position? Right? All these people fail up instead of failing out. And it's just so frustrating to see that happen. Anyhow, let's see what the response is to a good question from the NDP. Circle it on your calendars, everybody.
The intense nature of the collaboration and the development meant that these teams were meeting on a daily or even weekly basis. There was no deliberate decision not to put in place a governance structure.
But if you're meeting that often, Ms. Jeffrey, you must understand the frustration Canadians have and members of Parliament must have when present to a situation where you're meeting in a room every single week and you still fail to, one, address the issues of cost, two, the issues of governance, and three, finally, the ability to actually come into an agreement that actually sees some of these issues having fair oversight, to me seems like a very, very tenuous connection between what you think is good governance and what is truly poor governance. This is a dramatic failure, Ms. Jeffrey, and one that has cost Canadians millions of dollars. We cannot simply say that there was good intention between the CBSA and the Public Health Agency of Canada. They met every week, but failed to address the questions of governance and failed to address the questions of cost. If that's what you're saying is true, then that has to be the case. Or we're led to believe that this lack of governance went unquestioned, and the nature of these meetings were really not ones of governance. Which one is it?
Good. I'm glad he's drilling into her. This is exactly what should happen.
Yeah, it took him a little while to get there, but it seems he's picked up some steam and he's got some momentum.
Well, he read some children's books along the way, and
The little engine that could.
Now he's equipped, right?
Yeah.
But this is the thing. It doesn't matter the MP. It doesn't matter the party. This is what should be happening, is they should be holding these people to account. Now the NDP is doing it because they're getting a little, bit more tougher now that they're approaching this March 1st deadline, and they want everyone to know that, we're not with the Liberals. We're our own party now. Yeah. Well, keep doing this, and maybe people will start to believe you. Probably not. Dale Gribble with a $2 super chat. Guns don't kill people. The government kills people. Well,
That sounds like something Dale Gribble would say.
right. Sounds like something Charlton Heston would say too. And Bones with a $5 super chat. We all need to become politicians and show them how real Canadians do it the right way. And Louise A. King with a $5 super chat. We're only looking at a couple of government departments here. I can only imagine the cleanup on aisle 5 when the Conservatives are in,
Yeah,
right?
it's going to be bad, I think.
It'll be cleanup on aisle 1. No, wait, aisle 2. No, wait, aisle 3. No, wait, aisle 4.
All the aisles.
All the aisles. Kyle Stokes with the $10 super chat. Follow up. SNC Lavalin has changed their name to Atkins Realists. I follow you guys every night. You do an amazing job covering perspective of what we need to know through political parfing of words. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, and I think we actually did a video maybe a few months ago on the
while
fact
back,
that
yeah.
SNC Lavalin actually changed their name. And gee, I wonder why. Maybe they're having a brand problem.
I'd say that the nature of the meetings at that time in March 2020 were focused on the significant time pressure to develop an app that would allow the border to permit the flow of critical people and goods. And so the operational outcomes were the overriding subject of conversation and the necessity of layering the public health measures. Unfortunately, as we've acknowledged, there was not formal governance throughout that time. And that lack of formal governance.
Did the minister know about that lack of formal
I'm
governance?
afraid that is the time, Mr. Desjardins. You will get another opportunity down the road.
Thank you, Chair.
Turning now to Mr. Brock, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Uh-oh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for your attendance. I'd like to open with a comment. For the record, spending under Justin Trudeau's government on outside consultants and contracts has more than doubled, costing taxpayers $20 billion. And now we have a classic example of government waste and abusing the taxpayer. So I'm going to focus my questions to you, Ms. Jeffrey. You mentioned in the earlier rounds that ultimately you report to Minister Hajdu at the time during the implementation of the ArriveCan app. She was your direct minister. And you also reported to the PCO, the Privy Council Office. Is that correct?
Yes, the role of the President of the Public Health Agency of Canada.
Yeah. And directly reporting to the PCO is the clerk of the Privy Council is who you'd be reporting to. Correct?
For the purposes of the administration of the public service.
Right. But during the course of the ArriveCan implementation, you are reporting to the Privy Council Office. And you are aware that the Privy Council Office literally acts as a deputy minister for the Prime Minister. Is that correct?
The Public Health Agency functions as part of a health portfolio.
I'm not asking you about that, ma'am. I'm asking you about the structure of the Privy Council Office. That's the question. And would you agree with me that that really acts as a deputy minister to the Prime Minister?
Okay, so first objective in this meeting was tying it to another minister, which is Minister Hajdu. Check that off. Second objective is tying this into Justin Trudeau. And you can see that Heather Jeffreys is trying to work it in her head. Where is Brock going? You can see the wheels turning. And you can tell by the way she's answering and the fact that he's interrupting her, she's kind of lost here. She's trying to figure, okay, what answer, what way should I be actually, deflecting here in order to get ahead of this? And she doesn't know where he's going. But a couple people know where we're going. Number one is Nillik with a $5 super chat. The Liberals try to blame everything on the Conservatives of past, but at least the Conservatives can legit blame everything on past Liberals. Yeah, pretty much. And Bones with a $2 super chat. Glasses off, hats on.
Oh, boy.
Should I get my hard hat?
And we also have Robert McFallon with a $5 super chat. It says, I'm betting there was a lot of time spent at these meetings discussing the lunch menus.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the functions.
Thank you. Now, I want to know, without getting into specifics, I want to know about all the contacts, whether they be telephone, whether they be email, whether they be in person, all the contacts that you had with both Minister Haidu and the clerk of the Privy Council during the implementation of the ArriveCan app. So how frequently, let's start with the Minister Haidu, how frequently were you consulting with her and informing her about the implementation of the app?
So I would just clarify that it would be the role of the president of the Public Health Agency, since I've been in the role for 1 year, so not me personally. However, there was structured COVID governance focused on the measures that were being taken at the border. So here I want to distinguish.
Again, I'm not talking, ma'am, the question is very specific. I'm not talking about content. I'm talking about frequency. So whether you were in the role as the president or the deputy minister at all relevant times, or another colleague, how often were you consulting, telephone, email, meetings with Minister Haidu during the implementation of the app, but specifically the 177 versions of the app is the question. Can you provide an answer to that, please?
As it regards to the response to the COVID pandemic, the president of the Public Health Agency would have been in very frequent contact. I can't give a specific number, but in terms of the overall health response, the orders in council that developed the measures at the border, there was established governance that has been publicly disclosed.
Now let's move on to the PCO. Same question, frequency. How often?
There were regular committees and governance structures that met about the COVID response.
Okay. And clearly you were not sharing with either Minister Haidu or the clerk of the Privy Council all of the failings that the Auditor General has identified.
So one thing I do want to point out when it comes to this is Heather Jeffrey. She only became the president of the Public Health Agency of Canada in February of 2023. So she actually wasn't in the president role during the time of the ArriveCan app. That's why you're hearing her say, well, that would have been the role of the president's office. She wasn't in that role at that time. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that. She was in the department though. She served as associate deputy minister at Health Canada. So just want to make sure that everyone kind of understands that to give some fairness in terms of her responses to some of the questions. So we have Canadian Patriots with a $2.79 super chat. Are you hiring Northern Perspective? I want to be a Barnaby.
Thank you. We're not currently, but we don't know what the future will hold for us.
Yeah. At some point, we may need another Barnaby, but when we do, there's definitely going to be some conversations that Fox and I are going to need to have. Right now, we're okay, though. Thank goodness. Goko Donnie with a $20 super chat. Honest to God bribe. Please, please, please make Khalid a chipmunk. A times 2.5 would break the webs. That's so funny.
I think Barnaby would be upset with you.
Yeah. Daphne Devine with a $5 super chat. Whoa, easy there, Big Tiger. Back of the bus there, Mr. Canadian Patriot. Back of the gas-guzzling bus, my friend.
You guys are too funny.
There's some fights going on there. Ryan Poplinski, member for 3 months. Brock is the Vin Diesel of the House of Commons, and if lines and loyalties must be crossed, Brock's on it, fast and furious.
Amazing.
Absolutely. All right, let's get back to it.
Were you?
The responsibility to put in place the governing structure around the development of the app was...
Were you explaining to them about all the failings as identified by the Auditor General? Were you explaining to them that we have no contract, we have no budget? Were you giving some indication that this is really falling off the rails? Did you do that?
We were briefing, I'm sure at the time, on the operational requirement to stand up a digitized mechanism.
Did the minister or the Privy Council, the clerk of the Privy Council ever ask you about costs? Yes or no?
I was not in the role at the time, so I can't speak to that specifically, but I can say that the development of the app and the time pressures and the operational requirements.
It sounds to me, ma'am.
That is the time, Mr. Brock.
Thank you.
I'm afraid. Ms. Khalid, a good day. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Oh, Barnaby's girlfriend is up. Goodness me.
He wishes she was his girlfriend.
Does he? Does he really? Anyway.
Oh, Barnaby, we love you. You know we have to pick on you a little.
But she's just the talking points that she's just falling back on. It's so transparent. And here's the problem. When every single person comes out here and literally says almost verbatim the same thing, it's a very bad look, Liberals, because it's obvious that something has been distributed throughout the public service to say, this is what you're going to say. It's not a good look. It looks like you're covering it up. Just saying. Maybe this is Max Valakat. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's a terrible job. And it's complete transparency. Like, maybe that's the transparency that Trudeau's talking about. They do such a bad job at trying to cover things up. It's completely transparent. I don't know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I think I've said this before with other witnesses during committees that we've been able to question. I am very, very disappointed with how this whole procurement process has happened. And with a disregard, in my opinion, for public dollars, for taxpayer dollars, in how we conducted ourselves. But I do want to get to the accountability piece of it, and I know that the Conservatives are doing their thing, but I do want to put the question to our PHAC officials. Did the Prime Minister sign off on these contracts?
Oh, stop. Wow. Okay, glasses are off. Jeez. This is such a lame and transparent attempt to just protect Trudeau from this. Clete, of course the Prime Minister is not going to be the one signing off on these projects, you dolt.
Does the Prime Minister ever have signing power, or is it always the Minister of that department, like the Minister of Health, Minister of Foreign Affairs, etc.?
Well, it would be the PCO, the President and CEO.
Right, but after a certain point, it becomes
the Minister.
Yeah, and then after that, is there ever an amount where it becomes like the Prime Minister's? No, I didn't think so.
No, so remember when the public inquiry was spun up, and a bunch of people were freaking out over, this directive issued by the Governor General to name the appropriate minister for the public inquiry, and it was Trudeau. It was for financial sign-off only. That's what that meant. So it's the same thing here. So the appropriate minister is the one that is designated as the person who is, has signing authority for anything financially related for that agency or department. So, of course, Justin Trudeau would never sign off on any contract because he's not the appropriate and responsible minister. This is so stupid. But again, the Liberals don't care about, how the government actually works. They just care about the fact that, they're counting on quote-unquote dumb Canadians like us that are listening to this and don't know any better. And they're just going to hear, oh, okay, so Trudeau didn't sign off on these contracts? Okay, so it's not Trudeau's fault at all. Nice try. Let's see. I want to make sure we're not missing anything. So we have Ron Dick with a $2 super chat. Thank you very much. And that's your first on a live stream. Thank you for making it us.
And we also have a $6.99 super chat from Sloppy Sleuth. Thank you very much. It says, hey, Cypher and Fox, if Trudeau was to prorogue government tomorrow, would Pierre Poilievre be able to reopen all these cases once he takes office? Yes. Yes, and we actually have it on pretty good authority from one of the Conservatives that this is exactly what they would do because they're not going to let this go, nor should they.
And Mr. Excuses with another $2 super chat. Thank you very much. This woman is going to give Cypher an aneurysm. Maybe that's Barnaby's plan all along.
Yeah, it takes your spot.
She said no.
These contracts were concluded at different levels in the public service.
Did the Prime Minister sign off on them?
No, the Prime Minister is not a signatory to these contracts.
There you go.
Was a minister a signatory to these contracts?
No.
So this report by the Auditor General, which is a really good report, I think, in terms of a wake-up call to ensure that we are making sure that there's accountability for the dollars that we spend. What steps do you think need to be taken to ensure that that transparency and that accountability occurs going forward?
So this is Khalid thinking that she has a gotcha moment. Not on Heather Jeffries, but on the whole ArriveCan thing. So she's saying, did any minister, sign off on any of these contracts? And the answer is no. So she's basically saying, ha, checkmate. Nothing to see here. This was all in the public service realm. There was no elected official that is accountable or responsible for anything that went on. But I'm just going to, keep talking like I'm a self-righteous, you know the word, and it's just going to come across as I'm offended that the Canadian taxpayer was injured here and that people are unhappy. That's basically what she's doing.
But that makes no sense, because if it's over $1 million, the minister or the minister's secretary has to sign off on it. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, unless they're skirting policy, which they have been this whole time. So,
and some. It depends. Some agencies may have different signing authorities as delegated by the minister. So, but we do know that at some point Pam Damoff, who was the parliamentary secretary to the minister, she signed off on something for ArriveCan. So, could this be semantics? Wouldn't surprise me. Did the minister sign off? No, because maybe the parliamentary secretary to the minister signed off. So,
come on.
Right?
Come on.
Who knows?
That's cheap.
So both the Auditor General and the Office of the Ombuds for Procurement have made a series of recommendations that are being fully implemented by the Public Health Agency. On our part, we have put in place specific governance and operating procedures around contracting in emergencies, to ensure that the lessons of this are incorporated into all future responses. We have stood up a contract review committee that is assessing contracts to make sure we have consistency across our organization. We have put in place training and new governance for quality assurance of contracts and to ensure that documentation is on file. We will be implementing all of the recommendations made by both of those offices in short order.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And with respect to this organization, GC Strategies, in December of last year, our Public Accounts Committee had worked together to ensure that we are continuing to hold the government to account, especially with this issue, and to make sure that we are doing right by taxpayers' dollars. We had put together a motion in a very collaborative fashion to ensure that we move forward in a good way, and that we are doing the work with respect to that accountability as much as we can. It has come to light, there was an article in Le Journal de Montréal last week, which reported that the founders of GC Strategies received millions in contracts from the Harper government under the name Corridor Systems Consulting. Mr. Chair, given that information, and to continue to add to the context of the work that we have already done on this, I do have a motion that I am moving right now.
Oh, good Lord, we have a motion.
Oh, I bet this is the part that everyone's been warning us of.
Yeah.
Maybe you should take those glasses off.
Yeah,
Don't want him
maybe.
going through one of those screens.
Maybe. Yeah, this is the stupid thing about this whole thing. So, like, I'm sorry, but yeah, she can say that they did business with the Harper government, but like, so GC Strategies was started in 2015. Before that, they worked at Veritac, and she's trying to say that they worked for some other organization as well. Like, well, you know, some of them did. They worked at different organizations leading up to this. But are you really trying to say that $96 million, because that's the new number, because La Presse inaccurately reported that it was $250 million, $96 million that Harper spent more than that on GC on Christian Firth and Darren Anthony? I hope you're not trying to suggest that, Khalid, because that would make you even more of a moron than I think Canadians already think you are.
Well, refresh my memory. I thought GC Strategies as a company didn't form until 3 months after Trudeau took government.
It was either 3 months before or 3 months after, but regardless, you know, they wouldn't have had any work with the Conservatives at that point.
Or if they did, it was minimal. How many contracts can you sign in 3 months?
Like, that's my point. So, so this is silly. Now, here's the thing: when it comes to motions, everybody, when there's a motion and it's put on the floor, there has to be debate on it. So this means that the witnesses are going to be sitting there bored out of their minds until this motion is dealt with. And I wonder if this is the Liberals' attempt to filibuster the remainder of the committee. But I guess we will see. I think with a $7 super chat, Canadians don't want a by-election. We want a bye-bye Trudeau election. Yeah, absolutely.
We sure do.
Coolman0893 with a $2 super chat. GC Strategies should be called GC Tragedies. That's really good.
Amazing.
Let's see. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. We got a $2 super chat from Mr. Excuses. Liberals want to do right. Call in the RCMP then. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. They should get out of the way and let this investigation be carried out in full the way that it should be, and let the RCMP, let the Auditor General, let anybody and everybody do exactly what they need to do to get to the bottom of this.
Peter G with a $2 super chat. Again, scripted text and well rehearsed. Yeah.
It seemed that way.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Let's see what Khalid's motion is.
Pursuant to the motion adopted on December 12th, 2023, in relation to the committee's request for all contracts between a government department, agency, or Crown corporations and GC Strategies, Dalian, and Coradix, that the committee expand this request to include all other companies incorporated by the co-founders of GC Strategies. Chair, I really think that we need to get to the bottom of this. I think we need to understand what is happening here, and I would really like to see us expanding our initial work. I think this committee is doing very, very important work in ensuring that we are getting to the bottom of how our taxpayer dollars are being spent, how efficient they are, and what we can do as a committee to ensure that that we have an accountable, a fair and open and transparent procurement process, and a way of ensuring that we are spending taxpayer dollars with efficiency and with care, because I know that people are really hurting nowadays, and we must ensure that people have the trust in our public institutions to be able to pay their taxes and say, yes, we are running a good, a fair, a transparent country that is here to take care of our needs. And yes, during the pandemic.
Sorry, point of order, Chair.
Just hold on a second, Miss Khalid.
Yeah, call her Mr. Khalid.
Whoops. Maybe I should call her Mr. or Mrs. Barnaby.
Jeez, spare me the feigned concern. Like, it's disgusting. Not only am I going to need a massage, I'm going to need a shower. I'm going to need a new wardrobe. I have to burn all my clothes. I have to burn my linens because I just feel so dirty after listening to this lady.
Don't burn the linens.
Like, it is just insane.
Princess Thickness says, this is the part, get your barf bag ready.
Well, too late. Too late. I have to go change my shirt. Daryl Campbell with a $10 super chat. Trudum goes back to his doc to get his test results. Doc says, good news and bad news. Good news is you need an asshole transplant. Bad news is think the asshole will reject you. There you go.
Oh, wow.
Love it. Love it. And accurate.
Man, you guys are spicy tonight.
Yeah, it's great. Nothing but fire coming tonight from everybody. But
and don't forget to hit that like button, please. We're still about 200 behind. Can't quite see that far.
Yeah, we are behind. My mouse just died, so I have to plug it in. Where is my magical thing? That's interesting.
Oh, we got some technical difficulties over here, folks.
Always plug in your mouse before a live stream, everybody. That's fascinating. What the heck?
You want mine?
Well, anyway, let's keep going.
I was just going to cut you off. I think you were wrapping up, and I hear what you're saying, Mr. Jennings. I'm going to come back to you. I did see your hand along with Mr. Desjardins, but just give me a second. I just want to consult with the clerk for a minute. But thank you, Ms. Khalid. Appreciate it. And we have your motion here in both official languages. Just give me 1 second.
So now we're waiting. Let's go, people.
Mr. Jennings, you had a point of order, and then I do have a speaking list, which includes Mr. Desjardins and then yourself.
Yeah, Chair. On a point of order, this is an important motion to discuss. Notice was not provided by it, and I don't think it meets the matter at hand requirements. We are undertaking a study at present of the Auditor General's report. We have the Auditor General and senior officials who have come before us to testify on that. I'll look at historic contracts from one of the same companies, from not even the same, but from some of the principals involved in the present company, is just a very different subject. So I believe that
on
proper
that
notice
same
should have
point
been
of order,
given,
Chair.
and we'd be happy to discuss it with proper notice.
Yeah, just hold on. First of all, Mr. Desjardins, did you have your hand up to speak to the motion or point of order?
I have a point of order.
All right, go
Chair,
ahead,
if that's
please.
permissible?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I'm just looking for a copy of the notice provided both official languages before we debate or entertain that motion, please.
Okay.
So just on something procedural, when you're going to be introducing a motion at committee, you're supposed to provide a copy of the motion to the clerk in both official languages, English and French, so the clerk can distribute it to everybody at committee so that people can have an opportunity to review said motion before the committee, so they actually have time to, present a response to it. So, not surprisingly, Khalid just dropped this on the committee, and it hasn't been distributed. Nobody has it, and that's kind of what Genuis is arguing. He's also arguing that you're talking about a specific subject that has nothing to do with the matter at hand, and the matter at hand is the Auditor General's report and public health. Now, in fairness, the motion does actually have something to do with the Auditor General's report because it was based off of Stephanie Cousey's original motion last week, where she asked that the committee recommend to the House that they ask the Governor General to expand this study to all GC Strategies contracts going back to 2015. So the Liberals are trying to delay this and draw this out as much as possible because it took the Auditor General about a year on the last report. So they're trying to add as much scope to this as possible so that the Auditor General doesn't get back before the next scheduled election.
It really makes you wonder what they're trying to hide.
Yeah, and they're doing this in all the committees, and it's very, very sketchy because these are the tactics that they're doing. They're just loading up. They know they're not going to be able to stop these investigations now because the NDP is on side with the Bloc and the Conservatives, so they know they're moving ahead. So the only chess moves that they can actually play are those of obstruct and delay. Obstruct, they can only do so much because they're on their own and they're in the minority. And because they're a minority government, they're a minority on the committee. So all the opposition members could vote together and outvote them. So they're trying to add scope to this and under the guise of, we really want to get to the bottom of this. No. You really want this drawn out as long as possible so the report doesn't get back before the next scheduled election, in air quotes. Cypher was able to actually find his mouse cord, so that was great. So Manav Karana with a $2 super chat. Imagine Javier Milei at the helm here in Canada, all right? Non-Precision with a $7 super chat. The first time I heard that Justin effing up joke, it applied to Joe Clark. Nilik with a $5 super chat. When you're walking through hell, keep going, I guess. I thought it would be warmer, but apparently annoying libs are the torture of choice. And Diane Sylvain with a $5 super chat. I want all contracts reviewed since 1867, just to be sure.
Don't extend it out more than it needs to go.
There you go. All right, let's keep walking.
I'm going to read it, Mr. Ajay, because I don't know if we have an electronic copy coming right away to you, but we will endeavor to get one to you. It says, pursuant to the motion adopted on December 12, 2023, in relation to the committee's request for all contracts between a government department, agency, or Crown corporations, NGC Strategy, Dalian, and Cordic, that the committee expand this request to include all other companies incorporated by the co-founders of GC Strategies. And we will endeavor to get a copy to you. Un point d'ordre, Madame Sinclair-Dingley? Non, juste attends encore.
Chair?
Yes, Ms. Claude, you had a point of order.
Just on the point of order from Mr. Genuis, I do believe that this is very much in line with what we are studying. We are trying to get to the bottom of how contracts are given out, who they're given out to, and it is very strange that a company changes its name and has been operating within the whole procurement network for the past decade at least that we know of. I think this is very much in line with what our original motion was on this. And as you recall, Mr. Chair, over these past number of months, we've been talking about how we can, get to the bottom of this. We've had these conversations. In fact, when a number of times you've called special meetings, Chair, just to get to the bottom of this. And I think that this is going to add to where we go, where our accountability is, and to get to an understanding.
She just messed up. If you heard what she said this is going to be able to add to where our accountability is. Yeah, you want to pin the accountability on Harper somehow, some way. But guess what? Harper didn't make the ArriveCan app. You silly little lady. Barnaby, this is your girlfriend.
Barnaby. Ugh. Barnaby.
Like, everybody, never take any dating advice from Barnaby.
No.
Because this is the type of person that he's looking after. Anyway, let's continue with the feigned concern from the Liberals.
Of what this organization is and why has it been able to operate for so many years under different names, different contexts. And I think that it is incumbent on us as a committee to be able to add to this ArriveCan study with getting to know what this organization has been and what its history has been as well.
Chair, just to follow up on the point of order.
All right, just briefly, Mr. Genuis, please.
Yes, Ms. Khalid is making arguments about a study happening at the Government Operations Committee. Here at the Public Accounts Committee, the study is on a report.
Sorry.
On the
Okay, stop,
Yeah.
both of you, please. This is now entering into debates of the merit of the motion, which I think are valid on both sides. I'm going to put this motion aside for now. I'm going to recognize that it has been tabled. I view it as tangential to this meeting, not in line with the business at hand, which is to discuss PHAC and its involvement. So, Mrs. Khalid, while I look forward to having this motion,
Chair, I would have to
Ms. Khalid, I have the floor now. I will allow point of orders after.
Get her.
Wow.
Get her, Williamson.
You know, this is what I like about the Conservative chairs. They don't put up with any BS.
Get her.
Like, the Liberals start squawking, and he's just like, nope, I'm talking. Simmer down.
Yeah. Like... It'd be great if Generous said, "Hey, Mr. Chair, can you call the Liberals to order?" Instead of calling the witness to order.
Yeah.
So good for him, man. Like, again, him and Macaulay, they look like, if you just saw them, they kind of look like pushovers the way they present themselves. But don't push them. Don't push them, because they will absolutely come out of that shell when they need to and smack you down. So it's really, really good. And I agree with Fox. Like, the Conservatives have chosen their chairs with great care. They're fair, but they will also not take any BS. So it's really, really important. And you don't really see that too much when it comes to the Liberal chairs. Diaga Longmean, member for 2 months. She is completely out of touch. Yes, she absolutely
100%.
is. Nilik with a $2 super chat. She's trying to get the cons up as trying to hide. She's trying to set the Conservatives up as trying to hide. Yeah, and get some talking points out of them, so they can say, see, the Conservatives don't want us to look in the Harper era. What are they trying to hide? And Goko Tani with a $5 super chat. Okay.
I think those are fart noises.
All right. I will put that on my list of possible memes, I guess. Probably not. That's probably not a meme I want to actually have. That was great. You guys are just on fire tonight. Thank you so much for making this as entertaining as possible.
I'm going to give you my ruling. We will pick this up. If members would like to use the 1064 and pick it up on Thursday, I'm available for that, or anytime. But this is outside the scope of this meeting. This meeting is focused on business of the ArriveCan app, the Report 1 with PHAC officials. So that is my ruling today. I'm putting this aside. I'm happy to come back to you all Thursday, or sooner if you like, although I think it takes 48 hours for a 106.4. But if I get even agreement from other members, I'm happy to schedule a meeting for later this week. So, Ms. Khalid, you have a point of order to my ruling.
Yes, I challenge your ruling, Chair.
Okay.
I challenge your ruling. Thanks.
What else are you going to say?
Right? Go ahead. Challenge it. Because Generous is right. This is a motion in another committee. So why are you bringing up that motion in this committee?
To filibuster. Why else would they be doing it?
We know that. So, good try, Liberals, but this is why you have chairs that actually really have a good handle on House procedures and committee procedures. Diagonal on me with a $5 super chat. We have to get Barn an OnlyFans sub to a nice, wholesome woman. This lefty might turn him to the dark side, so if we don't intervene.
Dude, Barnaby's happily married, so I don't know what he's on about all the time.
You know what? Maybe we should set up a new service called Only Conservatives instead of OnlyFans. So, yeah, we'll get there.
That then calls a vote. And Clerk, I'll turn that over to you.
Oh. This will be interesting, folks.
Just give us a second, please.
So, if I'm correct, in my understanding of committee procedures, when the ruling of a chair is challenged, it comes down to a vote in committee. So, no doubt they will have a transparent vote, and we will be able to see which parties are voting for what. So the question is, here's the magical question. Do the NDPs side with the Conservatives or not? That's the question.
Which one of these two?
And the interesting thing here is, like, you have the chair of the OGGO committee sitting literally 2 spots away from MP Williamson there, who's the chair of the Standing
Shall
Committee
the
of Public
ruling
Accounts.
of the chair be sustained? Ms. Bradford.
No.
Mr.
Liberal.
Chen.
No.
Liberal.
Ms. Khalid.
No.
Liberal, Barnaby's girlfriend.
Ms. Diab.
No.
Ms. Yip.
No.
Mr. McCauley.
Yes, please.
Mr. Brock.
Yes.
Mr. Genuis.
Yes.
Madame Sinclair Desgagnés.
No.
Oh, block vote against it.
Mr. Desjacles.
No.
NDP voted against it.
7
Traitors.
nays, 3 yeas.
Turn it back on for a second.
Sorry, clerk, can you read the final results of that?
Yes, no, I'm just consulting with the clerk
There
here
was-
on how I should proceed. But clerk, back to you, please.
7 nays, 3 yeas.
So we are now debating this motion. I'm not entirely sure how long this is going to take, so I'm going to ask our witnesses just to hold for a little bit. I do have a speaking order already, which includes Mr. Desjardins, Mr. Genuis, puis après ça, Madame Sinclair Desgagnés. Mr. Desjardins, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do believe, given the context of my position and my statement in regards to the origin of this issue, I made and motivated my point very clearly just in the very first round and several times during this investigation already, pointing to the very direct instance where I believe the vulnerability of our public service that creates the kind of risk we're seeing in GC strategy is very relevant. I support this motion because of the intent to get to the bottom of how these individuals at GC strategies were both, one, able to take advantage of our public service, not just once, here, Mr. Chair, but several times. We've seen in the breaking of the story at La Presse in Quebec that there was over $250 million since 2015. Now,
You fail. There was a correction on that. A couple days ago. Get your facts straight, NDP.
Now, prior to that, we're seeing from information I'm gathering from their former name titled Cordial, that they've from the Conservatives, were able to contract over $7 million, and that's just in our initial findings. It is true that there is a rot in the public service, and that rot's been generational, and I've been clear about that generational rot. And now what we're seeing is both the Liberals and Conservatives being true to what is the very fact of the vulnerability present to our public service. I welcome the Liberals' motion towards transparency, and I'd invite my Conservative colleagues who are also interested in accountability and transparency to really delve deep in your own statements made many, many times about the risk that GC strategies and players like them present, to vote in favor of such a thing. Anything less would be a deflection and would be something to seek to try to hide what is the origin of the very important contractors on the other side of this. These contractors are known to the government, they are known to the Conservative Party, and they were known to the prior government under Harper. We need to get to the bottom of this. I welcome this level of transparency, and I hope that my colleagues do too.
Thank you, Mr. Desjardins. Ms. Khalid, I'll just acknowledge, I see your hand up. You're now third on the list. Mr. Genuis, you have the floor, please.
I hope Brock rips him a new one.
Yeah,
I really do. Because, okay, so the reason, we've already stated this, that if you open up the investigation too wide like this, it's going to take a very, very long time to get to the bottom of it. The prudent thing to do would be right now, just focus on what we suspect, which is the scope of ArriveCan, maybe a few years beforehand, which I think is what they're attempting to do, and not go all the way back to what year was it? 2006 that they want?
I don't even know how far back they want.
Yeah, they want to go back further than is necessary right now. Like, what they need to do is they need to handle the acute situation first, and then once that's dealt with, once people are in jail, once taxpayer money has been recovered, once justice has been served, then they can go back and look further and apply additional charges as required.
Well, and this is the problem, because you're going to bury it altogether. Space Dave 2000 with a $5 super chat. Sorry guys, but this proves the NDP and Bloc are on the take and cannot be relied on. It reinforces my belief. No new elections. Sorry, but proof here. I don't think disagree so. With your statement there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air. This is just one thing, right? And this vote here in this committee is just one thing. We've got the riding boundary coming up. We've got the fact that if Jagmeet plays his cards right, he could become leader of the official opposition. He's doing a horrible job right now, but there is room for him to pick up seats, especially Liberal seats, from people who aren't ready to vote Conservative but had previously voted Liberal.
So I will tell you exactly why the Bloc and the NDP are voting this way right now. They are voting right now this way because it's an opportunity to take a dig at the Conservatives. That's the only reason.
It's not really high stakes either.
No, because again, this is an inconsequential vote for an inconsequential investigation, because it's not going to be done before the next scheduled election, right? So when you need to really pay attention how the NDP votes, it's for consequential votes, right? So a consequential vote would be hauling in Christian Firth and GC Strategies, which the NDP is on record as like literally lecturing the Liberals earlier today. Because why? That is something that is very imminent. When it comes to something like this, when it comes to something like, we're gonna put everybody in jail if they support the oil and gas industry, like these things have no chance of actually completing before the next scheduled election.
Well, and this is the thing with politics. A lot of stuff is done for show. And it's really hard sometimes to be able to tell what is something meaningful that they're trying to do and what is something that's just, again, for show, to either piss off the opposition party or to piss off the government or maybe to confuse Canadians. Unfortunately, the government isn't above fighting dirty.
Right, and part of politics is theater, part of politics is strategy, and part of politics is the actual actions that happen, right? The meaningful actions.
And that's why we're here, is to help dissect that and be like, okay, this is garbage, this we need to pay attention to, this we need to keep our eye on and pay attention to later. That's our job.
Right. And the tricky part about looking at politics is really understanding which is which, and that's what we try to do. We try to try to let you know, okay, so this is theater, this is not. When it comes to the Bloc, they have voted against every single budget since the Liberals took office, right? So yeah, they're voting on an inconsequential thing here because they want to stick it to the Liberals, and it's an opportunity to score some political points. But when the chips are down, it's a different ball game, right? It's a completely different ball game. If the NDP were completely on side with this, with the Liberals, why did they vote to actually have the Auditor General have their report? Why did they side with the Conservatives to bring back Christian Firth into committee? Why did they side against the Liberals when they wanted to try to delay the initial investigation response, that was presented at OGGO until the fall? So there's meaningful votes and then there's non-meaningful votes. So this is, in our opinion, this is kind of a theater vote, which is why you're seeing, this go down the way it is. So anyway, let's go.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple very brief points. Number one, I'm sorry to see what very much appear to be delay tactics from the Liberals. They don't want to hear from the Auditor General. They don't want to allow us to ask questions to the Public Health Agency of Canada, and that's why they're moving this motion in the middle of when we should be questioning witnesses. I'd like us to get back to questioning witnesses, although a lot of things have been said by people in other parties that I don't think are accurate. We're ready to pass this motion and get it done with, having had a couple minutes to look over it. There's nothing objectionable in getting this information. I will just flag, of course, that 2015 was when GC Strategies was incorporated as a company. That's very clear. But look, if there's agreement of the committee now to pass this by unanimous consent, let's do that and get back to work.
That would be an amazing play here by the Conservatives.
I'm seeing a few head nods. I see some, but I believe Mr. Desjardins. Madame Séclading veut prendre la parole. Alors, à votre tour, s'il vous plaît.
Merci.
Thank you. I would like to go fast. We agree with the substance of the motion. However, there are two amendments that I would like to propose. The first amendment, instead of looking into the situation since January 2012, I don't know why that date was chosen. There are contracts that date back to 2007 with the two owners of GC Strategies. So I think we could simply extend the date. We could say since the creation of their businesses. That's the first amendment I'm proposing. I would like a date since the creation of the businesses.
For point of order and held off, so I'll hear from you, Andrew, Mr. Scheer, because you were
just in the copy of the motion that was distributed to members. There's a discrepancy between the English and the French. Mm-hmm. In the English, it doesn't have a start date, and I believe my bloc colleague is trying to amend the start date. So if we go by the English motion, then I don't think the amendment's necessary.
Merci beaucoup. So, Mr. do you have a similar? Okay. Alors,
Si on enlève la...
If we remove the date, that's fine with me. Second, so we remove the date stating since the 1st of January 2012 in French. And the second, one moment, please.
I'm just going to check with Ms. Khalid here. It's her motion. Ms. Khalid, the wording is different. Are you agreeable to removing en français the depuis le 1er janvier 2012 in English, since January 1st, 2012? Could we strike that? I need to bring the motions into alignment.
I think that should be okay, Chair.
Merci beaucoup. Okay. I'm going to consider that done if I don't see any objections. Alors, Claudie, votre deuxième amendement?
Oui. Donc, une des raisons...
One of the reasons why we did not receive any response concerning the motion of the 12th of December, 2 months later, it was because there was no deadline for the documents to be provided. So I would like that we add a date so that the government understand that it's urgent for them to provide the documents within reasonable time. So if you would allow me, I would like us to add that the documents should be provided within the 2 weeks following adoption of the motion. Within 2 weeks following adoption of the motion.
That amendment is perfectly.
Sorry.
Just 1 second, Ms. Khalid. I just want to just make that amendment is certainly well within order. I'm actually meeting with the clerk and the analyst later this week. We have been. I just want to clarify. We have been receiving documents from the Government of Canada, and they're in the process of being cataloged and to ensure they're in both languages as well and ready to be distributed. They're in a format to be distributed to members. So I expect some of that to come in the days and weeks ahead. Ms. Khalid, I think you indicated you'd like to speak to the amendment to your motion, which is to put a 2-week timeline on this return for documents.
Before we get to Khalid, just want to address a couple super chats. One from Gokodani with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Easy day tomorrow. Sell what's left on the truck. Flush, reload, and North Bay Flight School. Take this to the end. Thank you very much, Gokodani. Sarah Thomas with a $5 super chat. December 9th, 2021, Parliament had to vote in supplementary estimates an increase of $12 million to ArriveCan. They all voted. They all knew. Yeah, so we looked that up, and I just want to see about bringing this up here for you. But in terms of all of them knowing, there's everybody knowing, and then there's everybody agreeing is completely different. So so this is actually what the vote was on that particular day.
So these are all the votes that occurred on December 9th, 2021. You can see, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 of them were budget. The bottom one was definitely not budget. That was an amendment to the criminal code, which everyone agreed to, passed with unanimous consent. But the other ones were pertaining to budget. The Conservatives voted against. You can see 117, 117, 117, 117. That's the Conservatives.
So everybody else, literally everybody else, voted for the increases on this, but nobody knew that this was inappropriate. Nobody knew. I'll say nobody in the Conservatives knew that this wasn't budgeted for in this regard, right? So. It's very different when you budget $80,000 for something and then it ends up at $60 million.
And I can drop this link in the chat for you guys to see. If you click on where it says vote number NO.15 or NO.14, you can actually break it down by party, and you'll see that the Conservatives had voted against all of those top 4, at least, anyways.
But thanks for bringing that up, Sarah Thomas. It's always good to show these different types of things. Johnny O with a $7 super chat. If they get first to committee, can the Liberals pull their adjournment tactic and end it? Only if the NDP/Bloc agree with them, which I wouldn't count on.
Yeah, if they're going to vote to bring the guy to committee, like forcibly,
yeah, it
I
wouldn't
can't
make sense
imagine.
to adjourn.
Yeah.
it would look really, really shady on that. And Val with a $20 super chat. Okay, this time $10 for Cypher and $10 for
Thank
Fox.
you.
No one is SOL today. Well, Firth is SOL.
Yeah, he's going to be very soon, at least.
Look at this name, Slugbutt231. I love it. As an NP supporter member, thank you very much for that. Diagonal me with another $10. Thank you very much. I'm from Brantford. Everyone here has been calling Brock Mr. Brantford since these committees haven't covered all of this. He got huge flack locally for his pink high heels shite last year. That's unfortunate.
I don't understand. I don't agree with that, I guess I should say, because he was raising money for charity.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's right to make fun of people when they're trying to raise money for a good cause.
Yeah. Mr. Excuses with a $5 super chat. Listening to Khalid makes my brain look like the inside of passion fruit. I like Mr. Excuses jokes. That's great. All right, let's go.
Sorry. So my understanding is that we've got the documents for February 2nd from Public Safety. I'm just wondering if we can ask for 30 days rather than putting a February 2nd timeline on it.
March 2nd, you mean?
Can I just ask you, what is your, sorry, you mentioned another committee. What's the relevance of that committee?
No, sorry, we had asked for documents, right? From Public Safety.
So Khalid is all out of sorts now because she was expecting this to go to debate and she was expecting to be able to like filibuster this and everything like that.
Yeah, it's off script.
So the fact that the Conservatives just turned right around and said, okay, fine, we'll agree to it. Let's go. Well, now there's no need to debate, is there? And it doesn't make sense for the Liberals to debate against their own motion if everybody else is in agreement. So now she's kind of stuck. She's like, okay, how do I waste time here? And she's just looking like she's a disorganized mess. Before we go any further, Pandemonium with a $5 super chat. If Larry moved his riding down the 401, he could be the MP for Brockville.
Very nice.
Oh, he'd get the key to the city, that's for sure.
Oh, I think it was from OGGO operations, government operations.
Okay. All right. But I would appreciate that as we're trying to get documents in our committee, that we can give days instead of dates, if that makes sense.
And how many you propose 30 days?
I do, yes.
Okay. In sous-amendement, Madame Sinclair-Desgagnés, avez-vous?
Ms. Sinclair-Desgagnés, do you have any comments on that amendment, on that sub-amendment? And I would like to note something. We have lots of break weeks during the next 2 weeks and 30 days. Go ahead. I accept 30 days. Very well.
Opposition to 30 days? All right. So 30 instead of 2 weeks. Now, could I have a vote to pass the amendments / sub-amendment, putting a 30-day deadline on this? I see thumbs going up. Any opposition? That is passed. So now the motion is, well, as it stands, with a 30-day deadline. Any opposition to this motion? I declare it passed. I'm now going to get back to our witnesses. Madame Sinclair-Desgagnés, vous avez la parole pour 2 minutes.
Ms. Sinclair-Desgagnés, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. I want to thank the witnesses who are still here with us.
So that was chess in itself, folks. So what the Liberals were obviously trying to do is create debate and get the Conservatives to engage in that, and this would take up, maybe to the end of the meeting, so they wouldn't be able to dive into the witness questions anymore. And the Conservatives were just happy to be like, okay, fine. Initially, they tried to just get rid of the motion because it's not pertinent to this specific committee. So when they were outvoted in terms of discussing it at committee, they turned right around and said, fine, you want this motion? Go ahead. And we'll still get rid of the motion so we can continue with the questions. So it's all chess.
You only have 2 minutes, 30 seconds, so let's not waste your time. My question goes to you, the Auditor General. In your report, and from memory, I think it was 1.46, you said that you also observed that some processes at PACP did not respect the requirements of PSPC when it came to codes for awarding contracts, and you said that KPMG had received contracts without a competitive process. We are not only talking about a non-competitive process that could happen, but there was no documentation explaining why KPMG had been selected. And something else, the contracts had been amended to be more flexible. There were less task descriptions. So this allowed for the use of more public funds in the same contracts. Could you tell us more about that, please? That's a good summary of that paragraph. And I think it's paragraph 50 where we give the list of contracts and where the contracts were amended to provide for more flexibility. On the processes, sometimes this could happen. What I expected was that if the government needs more flexibility, it makes sure that in a contract, task authorizations are specified. This lack of detail is what contributed to the fact that it's difficult to know whether there was good value for money. I would say that these are basic requirements that we expect to see in contracts, things that should not be removed. How do you explain that basic requirements were not respected? As I said last week, I think it is because of the pandemic. People were under pressure to support Canadians quickly and efficiently. And there are lots of regulations that are required for government contracts, but we expect that some basic requirements should be followed. We don't have to complicate it, but there's a need for accountability. But you said that the pandemic should not justify rules being thrown out of the window. We understand that things had to be done fast. We understand that this did not happen only during the pandemic with ArriveCan. It must have happened before the pandemic. Clearly, that doesn't fall directly within the scope of your report, but we want to suppose that, can we suppose that processes were always respected at all times? Well, it's possible that there were some deficiencies before the pandemic. If you look at the report by the ombudsperson looking into larger contracts, larger than ArriveCan at CBSA, clearly there was lack of documentation and some basic requirements were not respected. But I expect a government to use common sense and ensure that there's proper oversight of policies in place instead of simply adding the processes. Thank you very much.
So the whole point of the block's questioning there was, is this native to the ArriveCan project, or is this a larger systemic issue that needs to be addressed? And the governor, or I keep saying the governor general, the auditor general's response was leveraging the ombudsman's report that detailed the fact that this is not just native to ArriveCan. This is definitely a larger issue, because if you recall, the ombudsman testified to the fact that they had made recommendations to the CBSA before to clean up their procurement practices, and they were not taken previously. And so that led to, even more recommendations being made this time around. So that's the whole point there. And Rob Barkhouse with a $5 super chat. Your live streams are more entertainment than any sports ball. That's quite the statement, but we'll take it, Rob.
Thank you.
And Massive Aggressive with a $2 super chat. How many taxes to make Khalid go away?
Well, she is currently trailing the Conservatives by 5 points in her riding. So how much does an election cost? I think it was $600 million last time. So,
but you know
what? $600 million well spent to get the Liberals out of office.
But that's a bulk deal, because you actually get to you
get like 100 others.
Right. Well. So it's more than a 2-for-1. It's like a 90-for-1 deal. So I'll take that.
2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do want to turn our attention now to the Auditor General's report's finding under 1.42, page 11 of the English report. It states that vendors, under the title vendors, we found situations where agency employees were involved in the ArriveCan project, were invited by vendors to dinners and other activities. To the President of the Public Health Agency of Canada, do you or are you aware of any instances where during your time there, before you were the president of the Treasury Board, president of Public Health Agency, and during your time on the Special Task Force for COVID-19 for the very same project under ensuring that people had access to COVID-19 supports, did you find any instances where this became a red flag, and was that red flag reported?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We found no evidence that agency employees or staff received invitation from vendors.
Thank you very much for that. To the Auditor General, what instances, or in your words, what situations where the agency employees who were involved in the ArriveCan project were invited by vendors to dinners and other activities? What evidence do you have to suggest that?
We, as you know, because the files were so incomplete, we turned to emails, which are transitory typically in nature, and it's in those emails that we saw invitations from 3 or 4 vendors to at least 5 Canada Border Services Agency employees and about a half a dozen other that we couldn't tell if they were part of the Canada Border Service Agency or other departments because their emails extensions were not there.
I'm going to just speculate at those 5 employees. Cameron McDonald.
Anthony Utano.
Tony Utano. Min Doan. John Osowski. Diane Daly. Those are my 5 that I'm picking.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with that.
Debbie Clark with a $5 super chat. Khalid, Queen of Point of Order, is losing her seat anyway. That may be why she is leading the charge. She's disposable. That's not a bad theory.
Yeah, could be.
Not a bad theory at all, Debbie. Thank you very much for that. Okay, here we go.
And so, Ms. Hogan, just to clarify that statement, you're not certain as to whether or not officials outside of the Canadian Border Services Agency, which may include the Public Health Agency of Canada, were invited to such dinners or events?
I am not certain. I can tell you that at least 5 of the employees on the emails that we saw, granted we did not see, potentially see all of them, were Canada Border Services employees.
And to the President of the Public Health Agency of Canada, in instances in your own department where an employee is offered gifts or invitations to dinners, are they reported to you, or who are they reported to?
Where gifts are offered to public servants, there is a reporting requirement, and there are also conflict of interest declarations that can be filed, but I'll turn to Martin Crummins to speak to the controls.
So as part of the contracting process at the Public Health Agency, we have a form that requires all managers that are proposing a contract to declare any conflict of interest, and that would be the process that they would.
And thank you. I'm afraid that is the time.
Thank you, Chair.
Turning now to Mr. Genuis. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. What we've seen from Liberals thus far in this testimony is quite incredible. They're trying to limit witness testimony by moving motions in the middle of their testimony. Liberals are also trying to question the core principle of ministerial accountability. They're trying to suggest that ministers are somehow not responsible for what happens in their department. And this is really unprecedented. I think it's clear that in our system of government, ministers have been responsible for what happens in their departments for hundreds of years, but uniquely Liberal ministers think they're not responsible for what happens under them. Ms. Jeffrey, I want to ask, Canadians I talk to are horrified and disgusted by what happened with the ArriveCan app. Do you think those feelings are justified?
We acknowledge that the governance that should have been in place for an IT project of this nature was...
Sorry, I'm gonna jump in. My time is tight. That wasn't my question, right? My question was, Canadians are horrified and disgusted by what happened with this app. Do you think those feelings are justified?
I think that there were many dimensions to the ArriveCan app. I think that there was value in terms of the services that were provided.
Sorry, do you think Canadians are justified in feeling horrified and disgusted?
I can't speak to how Canadians view the app. I can speak to the governance and the project management that was put in place.
Okay, that's a pretty clear non-answer, but we'll move on.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is he trying to get at, though? He doesn't usually ask like frou-frou questions like this. It's usually facts and statements and things you can prove.
I think what he's trying to do, he knew he was not going to get a good answer, but I think that was the objective.
Just to make it look bad.
Yeah, because remember the whole objective. So the thing that everyone needs to kind of look at what the Conservatives are doing this committee meeting is try and look past the individual questions themselves. Look at the whole. Remember, the Conservatives are approaching this with a strategy. So the strategy that they're taking here is they're trying to tie this to elected officials. And you got a bit of that when Jenny was open with that. You got a lot of that when Barrett talked about it. You got a bit of it from Brock. So they're sprinkling this all throughout their questions. And some questions are trying to throw off the witness, and some questions are trying to actually elicit a specific response, even though they know it's a negative one. In some cases, they want a negative response. Why? Because they tie it back to the minister being responsible. So her non-answer actually serves to help the Conservatives by saying, see, you have the president of Public Health Canada not seeming to care of what Canadians view in terms of what they got for their taxpayer money. And the minister is responsible for that president being there and that president not caring about the taxpayer money that she is being allocated through the budgetary process to then spend on her projects throughout her department. So all of this serves to weaken the position of the minister that was in charge at that time, which is Haidu, and the current minister, which is Mark Holland. And it ties it back to the whole narrative of incompetence and negligence that the Conservatives are trying to paint the elected officials at when it comes to this. So you have to view all of the questions being asked in totality. They're not just throwing out these questions willy-nilly without a larger purpose. Rev Mercedes with a $5 super chat. It may be a strategy, but thankfully not a GC strategy.
Very nicely played.
Zing!
Well played.
That's great. All right, let's continue.
There's a remarkable absence of documents, including records of basic communications that you would expect in a case like this. Did you or anyone else at the Public Health Agency of Canada destroy documents related to ArriveCan?
I have no knowledge or evidence of documents having been destroyed, and we have a policy that requires information of business value to be retained.
So you can't say that they were, and you can't say that they weren't, in terms of your own knowledge of documents being destroyed. Is that correct?
I can say we found no evidence of documents have been destroyed.
Okay, but there was such a glaring absence of documentation. Are you concerned that documents may have been destroyed? Do you think it's plausible that absolutely no records were kept in so many of these cases?
What I can say was it was a time of great change at the agency as we responded to the pandemic.
No, but people still have to talk to each other, right? I know, ma'am, I know it was an urgent situation and lots was changing, but people still have to talk to each other. People still send emails back and forth. In times of urgency, I would expect there would still be a lot of communication happening, and yet there's such an absence of information. Are you concerned about the destruction of documents, especially with reports alleging Mindone destroying a large number of emails? And I know that wasn't PHAC, but are you concerned about destruction of documents within the Public Health Agency of Canada?
I agree with what the Auditor General has recommended, which is that documentation needs to be provided and to be maintained on file so that when you have change and turnover in personnel, those records are maintained.
That's not really an answer to my question. Can I just quickly flip over to the Auditor General? If you can confirm your previous testimony, the complete absence of documents suggests that either there was a conspicuous lack of records kept or the documents were destroyed, that one of those two things happened, but you weren't able to confirm which. Is that correct?
Well, when documents don't exist, it's either they never existed or they were destroyed. So, and in this case, we can't tell you which it was, but there is a glaring lack of documentation that should be maintained.
That was a good play by Genuous there, because he's trying to get a straight answer out of Jeffries. No, he's not going to get it. And then he goes right back to the Auditor General, who he knows is going to give a straight answer. So it's almost like he's using her to refute Jeffries' testimony, and she's sitting like two people over. So it's a very good strategy. It also makes Heather Jeffries feel very uncomfortable because she has somebody right next to her that is giving straight answers, not non-answers like she is. And it is very concerning when Jeffries is like, it makes you, again, it makes you wonder, wait a minute, why are you giving non-answers? That just makes me want to ask you more questions. So it makes you think, okay, something may be going on at Health Canada. Maybe it's not just CBSA. What the heck is going on?
Thank you. Back to the president. The app went through 177 different versions, most of which weren't properly tested. You owned the app, so why weren't different versions of the app tested? Why did you not insist on proper testing of the app?
In their testimony that in order to increase the speed by which the versions would be deployed, that they were not all tested.
What? In order to increase the speed with which the app was deployed, we decided to skip testing. That's something else, folks. That's like saying, in order to increase the speed in which we built that 80-floor building over there, we skipped all of the inspections. it just slows things down. So we actually don't know if the building is structurally sound, but we got it built quickly. And now, is it any wonder that over 10,000 Canadians were improperly quarantined as a result of this app? Like, holy moly.
So you were aware at the time that they weren't being tested and you were okay with that?
Oh, she's having a Freeland moment here. Crap. Didn't expect that follow-up question.
Governance around the project management at the time looked at how the apps were being deployed. And
sorry, I'm looking for clear. Ma'am, I have limited time, and I'm looking for clear answers to clear questions.
I'm going to turn to my colleague Luc Brisbois from the Broader Services.
No. I want to hear from PHAC. Over 10,000 people were falsely sent into quarantine because this app was, in most cases, not properly tested. Are you comfortable with that? And did you brief the minister about the lack of testing?
So it's very regrettable. We're obviously not comfortable when people are erroneously advised. In this case, when they arrived in the country, they were given a green check mark, which means they are cleared for entry without isolation periods. There was then an error in the app that resulted in messages being sent out. The public health agency
I'm asking about the testing. Are you comfortable with the lack of testing?
Mr. Jenius, that is your time. Turning now to Ms. Yip. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Oh, goodness.
Thank you for coming.
Jenny Yip. Is there any value?
Yeah, you guys let us know because we haven't seen this. Can we just skip Jenny Yip?
Yeah. Is there any value in watching Jenny Yip? My guess is no. In the meantime, if we can get an answer on that. 420 hitter with a $2 super chat. I bet Miss Non-Answer had a meeting with JT today. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Revi says with a $2 super chat. Wait, it had project management. Yeah, that was actually what I was thinking. There certainly doesn't seem to be a project manager, behind this. So, all right, everyone is saying skip the Yip. Oh, jeez.
Alrighty.
Okay, let's see if we can do this grace.
To ensure that this does not happen again. This was the first time we had faced a global pandemic in the agency's history, and so our processes and procedures have been continually evolving after every crisis, and this one produced quite a number of lessons in terms of our governance and our documentation.
Thank you very much. That is the time. Turning now to Mr. Barrett. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Public Health gave a non-competitive professional services contract to KPMG, and on that, the Auditor General said, quote, "We found no documentation of the initial communications or the reasons why the agency did not consider or select other eligible contractors to carry out the work," end quote. Is that correct, Ms. Hogan?
Yes, you've quoted the part of my report, yes.
Ms. Jeffrey, how much was that contract for?
The original contract was issued by PSPC as one of the 7 companies that were available under the COVID emergency professional services. The total amount that was contracted with KPMG through the 3 different contracts was $4.5 million.
Just the date, please. When was it completed?
I'm going to turn to Martin Cremens to talk about the dates.
Yes, the initial contract task authorization through PSPC was awarded and signed on September 29th, 2020 for a value of $518,000.
What was the benefit that taxpayers got from this contract?
The role of KPMG in this contract was really to do the work to assess the industry impacts and the traveler journey using the app. So the app had to be deployed in an airport environment, working with with air services and the aerospace industry. And so they were looking at the process maps, at the journey maps, at the rollout and other implementation around
So this contributed to the at least $60 million price tag, yes?
What in the heck is going on? So, okay. I'm pretty sure everybody on the stream has downloaded an app. Pretty sure. And if not, you would know how to. So what I just heard, and I apologize for speaking slowly because this is frying my brain. Public Health Canada thought it would be a really good idea to pay KPMG $4.5 million, starting out at $500,000, to process map downloading an app.
So, if my understanding of process map is correct, that's kind of like an image that you might look at that's like, step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Right?
Yeah, it's a diagram.
It's kind of like the diagram that I made for our community about how to turn the notifications on for the Discord, right?
Kind of. I'll show everybody what a process map is. It's like, oh my goodness, this is just.
It sounds like something that shouldn't cost $4.5 million.
So, this is a process map. And you know, there's a start. Each of the, I don't want to go through this, but so there's a start. There's, you know, different boxes that indicate like actionable steps in the process where something happens. The diamonds are decisions where, you know, you say, you know, do you go this way if you make this decision, or do you go this other way? And then, you know, the process map continues, so you can understand what's supposed to happen in a process. And then in this particular map, you know, you see the different stakeholders within the process. So you have a customer, you have sales, you have warehouse people, and you have a payment person. So, you know, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but you don't need a process map to download an app, for goodness sake. You know, you would want a process map in the design of the app itself to understand, you know, what screens is somebody going through. But to pull KPMG in, of like, they're not a small firm, and pay them $4.5 million to map out how people are going to download an app in an airport. Are you kidding me? Oh, okay.
Your tax dollars at work, folks.
Like,
yikes.
What?
Yikes.
Okay, Spawny 420, $4.20. It's 420 somewhere. It's 420 right now, I'd say. Holy crap. The dude with a $5 super chat, we had to move at the speed of corruption to ensure the safety of nobody. Fixed it. Yeah, absolutely. Craig Robertson with a $2 super chat. First pandemic in history, Spanish flu of 1917, right?
I think they said the history of the organization. I'm not quite sure how far back it goes, but if it goes back as far back as Canada's history, then absolutely there's been pandemics.
Rabusadis with a $2 super chat. Oh my God, they have gone plaid. Yeah, absolutely. And love the Spaceballs reference, Rabusadis there. Holy.
The auditor,
contract?
No, the $59 million associated with the contract were related to the development of the app and its technology.
This was over and above.
So these were
additional
part
costs
of support services related to border measures that included a wide variety of different measures at the border.
So additional costs.
Yes, these are additional costs related to the implementation of border measures.
The Auditor General said that there was no documentation found on the initial communications on this contract. So who called who?
The contract has a sole source justification on file that identifies the expertise of the vendor in aerospace services, in administering public health and health projects at the municipal, provincial, and
so
local
there are
level.
documents to support their selection?
There is a sole source justification on file, but there is no documentation of the initial contact with the company.
Okay. So who contacted who?
It's
pretty straightforward. Either KPMG called you or you called KPMG.
There's no documentation on the file. They were chosen from a list of pre-qualified contractors that was
KPMG.
established by the public service, by Procurement Services Canada, PSPC. So PSPC
Called KPMG.
would have made the initial contacts with those
The
companies
Auditor
to
General
establish
said,
contracts
and I
with them.
quote, while the first contract included milestones with clear deliverables and pricing, these were later amended and replaced with less specific deliverables to allow for more flexibility. In addition, the agency did not set out specific tasks, levels of effort, and deliverables for these contracts in task authorizations, end quote. Ms. Jeffrey, did public health reduce the deliverables required by KPMG, one of the largest firms in the world? Was there a reduction in the deliverables, yes or no?
There was no reduction in the deliverables.
Okay. I'm going to turn to the Auditor General.
This is so handy, having the Auditor General right there when you're like trying to impeach a witness. This is great. This is absolutely great. Anyway. All right. Taking a breath. Here we go.
Ma'am, your report says the opposite of what the president of the Public Health Agency has just said. And I quote your, should I quote your report again, or you've got, you know what you said. Okay.
I can read it back to you, yeah.
Okay.
No, there were deliverables. The deliverables were then relaxed, right?
Right.
They were very clear, and
Right.
then they were made less specific in order to provide flexibility.
Right. So that's
good. About 40 questions, 40 seconds. Just one.
Okay, so we have the Auditor General. I read what she had written. She repeated what she wrote. What you said, Ms. Jeffrey, is not consistent with that. The requirements were relaxed of KPMG by Public Health, one of the largest firms in the world in KPMG. How is it that the government sets specific criteria, then goes back and creates less specific criteria? So, like, I would want to know why the government would want to do that, because we know what the result is going to be: higher costs for taxpayers and less accountability for Canadians. How can you possibly justify that?
So, Mr. Chair, what I can say is there was no reduction in the amount of work that was required for the deliverables. Yes, the categories of the work that was being done were broadened, and the Auditor General has pointed out that that meant that they were less specific. However, that was done in response to a rapidly evolving pandemic, for example.
Which the Auditor General also said was not an excuse
and that,
to
Mr.
relax
Barrett, that
the
is
rules.
your time, I'm afraid. Turning now to Ms. Bradford, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
This lady is getting destroyed. Just destroyed.
Well, maybe she should be a better witness. Maybe she should do a better job of giving the MPs the question or the answers to the questions that they're asking.
And this is the head of the agency, folks. Head of the agency. Like, it's blows my mind. Nelly with a $5 super chat. Speaking of Spaceballs, the Liberal government reminds me of that scene where he realizes and he says he's surrounded by assholes. How many assholes have we got in this place anyway? Yo! That might be a meme. Great one, Nelly. Oh, let's continue.
To you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the witnesses for being there today. Ms. Jeffrey, the Auditor General has indicated, and you have also identified, that there was no agreement between you, your agency, and Canada Border Services Agency. And so there wasn't any framework or anything like that. Do you have any idea why that was the case, that was never established? I mean, we see the ramifications of that, but...
Okay. I may skip past this lady as well, because all we're going to hear is, well, it was a tumultuous time and we were in the middle of a pandemic. So, yeah, if there's no objections from anyone, I'm going to be fast forwarding past this as well. In the meantime, while I get some answers on that, just to note that Felon P. Kell said that PHAC was formed in 2004, but Fox was right. I was thinking history of Canada. There you go. Robert McFallon with a $5 super chat. I'm literally breathing into a paper bag right now. Yeah, I'm lacking a paper bag, so I'm gonna have problems. Craig Robertson with a $2 super chat. Fox is right. I was thinking in history of Canada. Okay, so yeah, there you go.
We got a bunch of skips, so sounds like we can skip this one.
All right, so.
You'll have another turn.
The floor for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Before I go any further, I was because I was in the other view. Fox, you want to read out that super chat again?
Sorry,
for
which one? For Ravisadis? Okay, for Ravisadis, it says, last time I saw anything get destroyed that thoroughly, it was the dividing of Poland in World War II.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. Okay.
And we also have Val with a $1.99 super chat. Thank you. It says, skipulator. Okay. Sounds good to us.
Mr. Chair, I want to turn again to the report, page 15 in the English version under findings related to no governance structure or budget. The narrative we've heard so far, and the one we've been investigating from the Auditor General, which we thank for her work, is the fact that on the onset of the development of ArriveCan, we've seen that there was no formal agreement existed between the Public Health Agency of Canada and the Canada Border Service Agency on the respective roles and responsibilities. We find that those roles and responsibilities are critically important because they delineate, of course, things like the project objectives, project goals, project budgets and cost estimates, assessment of resource need, and even risk management activities. This could have been avoided should there have been a good governance structure, at least to have given red flags to this. The president of the Public Health Agency, you mentioned that there was weekly meetings to establish work on ArriveCan, but it failed to accommodate for any of these really important governance issues. What was discussed, if you can, in just maybe 15 seconds in those meetings?
So at the meetings, my understanding is the focus was on how to operationalize the OICs at the border through the app. So they would go through the different releases. They would look at readiness checklists for the releases. There was a formal intake process for any changes that would be made to the app and documentation of the business requirements for each change. So there was a lot of discussion around the operational rollout of the app and its different versions and adjustments. But what the Auditor General has pointed to is that the overarching project governance infrastructure was not in place or documented.
And I thank you for that statement, because it seems as though that was known to the ministry, or sorry, to the department. Then a letter of intent was established between the agencies, and you mentioned that, to sign on July 2020 and was in effect till March 2022. The letter then clarifies the things that should have been done largely throughout those meetings. And so I was pleased to see that at one point there was a check and balance. We then find non-competitive contracts, however, are then distributed. It is a shame that upon the time that this was caught as an issue, that we almost see this burying of the facts by the release and tenureship of a competitive contract, but your agency was directly involved in ensuring that the experience and qualification requirements of those contracts were very narrow. How is it that that's fair for Canadians when so many times we see the abuse of these kinds of instances take place, and we had an opportunity to rectify that by a competitive process, but then we've seen the terrible issue of ensuring that your department—
Mr. Desjardins, you're out of time. I'm going to allow for a response, though. Mr. Desjardins, you're out of time, but I will allow for a response, please.
The decision was taken to enter into a sole source contract with KPMG because of the time pressures of needing to put in place the actual rollout in the airport processes, the need to liaise with airlines and airport authorities, and the need to ensure that the traveler journey and the information that was being put out to the public about the app was accurate and timely. So the sole source was pursued for reasons of speed of response, and the reasons for choosing KPMG were documented. However, the Auditor General has pointed the need for more documentation in that regard. And so I would say the subsequent contracts also stemmed from the experience and track record of excellent delivery of the vendor on those services.
Thank you very much. Mr. Scheer, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Very interesting that Scheer joined this meeting. Now, this is about approximately an hour and 15 minutes before the Standing Committee of Government Operations when Scheer joined that meeting to talk about the motion to bring Christian Firth back. So it's interesting that he's here. He never joins these committee meetings, so it's very fascinating that he's here. Sabotage KCCO with a $5 super chat. French at 1 1/4 speed is much easier to listen when they have a slow translator. Good stream. PP for PM. Where's the funds? Thank you so much for that. And yeah, I don't disagree. Norm Nicholson. Norm! Cypher sometime, not tonight. Please, can you explain how the speakers are ordered and how the time limits are set? Love your knowledge. So in terms of the speaking order, yeah, we'll get back to that, and maybe we'll spend a little bit more time on that. The speaking orders for just standard witnesses are set in a specific way. What I can talk about very briefly is when there's a motion, speaking order is set by who's raising their hand first. So when there's a motion, members will raise their hands to indicate that they actually want to speak in response to the motion, and it's just first come first serve when it comes to that. But we'll do a video as it relates.
Or that might even be a good one for like a Sunday.
Yeah, maybe we'll get back to that this Sunday, and then it won't be so far. So thanks for the suggestion, Norm. Okay. Let's hear what Mr. Scheer has to say.
Thank you very much. Question for Ms. Jeffrey. You indicated that of the 177 updates to the app, that proper testing for the updates wasn't done. Do you believe that's acceptable to operate in that manner?
A best practice would be to test all of the different applications. However, my understanding is a decision was taken to only test a sampling of them because of the time that it took to test those and the pressure to have the adjustments rolled out quickly.
Okay, who made that decision?
I don't know who made that decision at the time, but
like nobody knows who made the decision for anything. Like I hope Scheer goes after her for this.
Who has the authority to make that decision? Decisions don't just get made; they don't just appear. Who would normally have the authority to make that decision?
The app development and rollout at that stage was being managed by the Canadian Border Services Agency, and the Public Health Agency was collaborating with them in terms of...
Okay, so are you saying it was somebody at CBSA that would have made that decision? Or someone at...
I believe that CBSA has already addressed this in their previous testimony at this committee.
So was it somebody in your department that made the decision to not test the apps?
I'm going to turn to Luc Brisbois from the Border Services Branch.
Yeah, I think the President's right in the context that the governance would have been the place where these issues were discussed, but from an IT perspective...
Nobody knows. We have all these officials who make decisions that impact people's lives, and nobody knows who makes decisions when the government's going to relax.
I think for the Public Health Agency, the key issue was the dependency on the implementation of the OIC. So things had to be decided, and in the context of this...
Every department has an org chart with titles and with names. There's a lot of words going on, but like who normally has the authority to decide to relax rules or processes?
With respect to the testing or the contracting?
The testing.
Yeah, the testing, we were providing CBSA with the advice of what we needed in the application, and they were running the process.
Okay, so who would have the authority to suspend normal processes or relax rules?
I think it would have been done through the governance of the DGs and the ADMs at the time. We'd have to go back and take a look.
Okay, I'll move on. The 10,000 erroneous quarantine orders, was that a specific event? Like, was there one glitch that created all of that, or was that cumulatively over time 10,000 wrongful quarantine notices were given out?
So that was a specific event that was identified on the 28th of June and resolved on the 20th of July. So it was a specific event in the app, an error that was identified, rectified, and then the Public Health Agency was involved in addressing that.
Okay, so it was one specific event. Did you brief the minister that this event happened?
I was not present at that time, so I can't actually speak to what briefing, but we can take that away.
Okay. Were the 10,000...
Sorry, I just, that's an open-ended. Are you going to get back to the committee when you say take it back? Is that you're implying you're going to come back to us with an answer on that if the minister was briefed? Because, Mr. Jeffrey, I will remind you that you're here representing PHAC, so I know the questions are you, but the committee hopes you're responding for PHAC. And I heard you say you'll come back to us. Are you going to provide us with an answer to that question?
So I'm not aware of what briefing was done at that time, but I take note of the request and I will go back to see if there's evidence of what briefing.
Thank you. Then we will look for that answer. Appreciate it. Mr.
I'm glad that Williamson jumped in there to make sure that she knows that we're expecting a response from you. And then if you commit to give the committee a response, you have to give the committee a response. You can't just, say something in passing. That's kind of what Williamson was saying. It's like, don't give us fluff here. If you're saying you're going to give us something, then you're going to give it to us. So yeah, we want to know if the minister knew. And here, this is huge, folks. So there's an admission that testing was relaxed, and I wonder if any testing was even done at all after that decision was made. Nobody knows who made the decision, so people are covering for somebody. Give me a break. People know who made that decision. Don't even start. That's a huge decision for somebody to say, you know what, I don't think we need testing on this app. Just in the nature of speed. There would have been disagreement with that. Unless all of them are just as incompetent as everybody else.
It's possible.
Revu says with a $2 super chat, automated testing protocols are a thing. Yes, they are. When it comes to the government, though, you need something. You need some. you need some sort of predictable back end in order to actually have them. I think work properly. And the government has such technical debt that I think it would be challenging, to say the least. Maybe not impossible, but it would be challenging. Kathy Sharp with a $5 super chat. Speed of delivery seems to be the fall of everything in this pandemic decision rollout. Speed of science, anyone. Yeah, and that's it. It's all in the nature of speed. And they're using it as an excuse. Well, it was hard. Yeah, no kidding. That's the time when you need to rely on your processes.
Right, which they should have had in place. I said it earlier, and they didn't. Even SARS was enough of a scare that they should have put some pandemic response in place, and they just didn't.
But even outside of that, these are intergovernmental processes, and they can't say, well, we didn't have these processes. Yes, you did. You just chose to ignore them. Just like testing. Oh, well, we don't need to test. Really? So the consequence of you not testing resulted in 10,000 Canadians being quarantined. Some people losing their jobs. It's outrageous. And they're just like, oh, well. It is absolutely outrageous.
Sure, you still have 2 minutes left.
Have the 10,000 individuals been notified? The Canadians who are ordered, or the travelers who are ordered to quarantine, have they been notified that they were wrongfully ordered to quarantine?
Yes.
Okay. The decision to pursue a quote non-competitive approach in all of this, who made that decision?
We don't know.
That decision would have been taken by the public health agency and to take advantage of the contracting vehicle that was set up by PSPC.
Individuals, though, which individuals would have said, we're going to pursue this approach?
I'll turn to Martin for who signed the authority.
There would have been director generals and executive directors within our program branch.
Can we get names and titles?
I don't have those with me at the time, but I can endeavor
get back to the committee on that. Okay. Was the minister briefed that a non-competitive approach would be taken on this issue?
The decision at the time was taken within the public service at the director general. It was my recollection of the signature of that contract. It would not be normal practice to brief on the nature of how the operations were being implemented.
She's not incorrect in saying that. So ministers typically are not going to be involved. Doesn't matter who they are or where they are. That's too in the weeds for a minister to actually be involved with. It's unnecessary for them to say, oh, by the way, we're going to be using a non-competitive contract. Like the minister can be, I don't care. Follow the rules. That's what the minister should be saying. Brian Poplinski with a 279 super chat. Why don't they call in HR and check job descriptions? Well, that's I think the question, right? You know, why doesn't anybody know who does what? And don't forget, Heather Jeffrey is the president. She doesn't seem to know anything. But, you know, par for the course. Nilik with a $2 super chat. I wonder if Sophie's communications company is involved. Yeah, I wonder. Sole source contract, anybody?
Okay. So having taken a non-competitive or sole source approach to just, you know, not have any kind of comparisons, not do any kind of shopping around to see if you can get a better price or a better product, who provided the oversight monitoring the invoices that were coming in from GC Strategies?
The Public Health Agency did not contract with GC Strategies. I thought you were referring to the KPMG contracts that were administered through the agency. So it would have been at CBSA.
At CBSA.
Yes.
Okay.
That we're monitoring those contracts related to the app development.
Okay. I think that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scheer. You have a few seconds left. You did ask for some other information, but I didn't. At about the 1 minute mark, can you just? I do like to get an acknowledgement from witnesses.
The decision makers around the decision to pursue a non-competitive approach. We would like to know who made that decision.
All right.
On the KPMG.
Again, if you could make note of that request and provide an answer forthwith. Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Scheer. Turning out to Mr. Chen, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Oh, Chen. He's going to take it on the chin because we're going to be skipping him. Ravi says with $5 super chat, the look on the Auditor General's face as her non-answers keep spilling out are kind of priceless. Yeah, she's just like, oh my goodness. Val with a $5 super chat. So what is this meathead responsible for? Nothing. Anyway, give me 1 second and we'll skip past Mr. Chen. Looks like we're back to Mr. Brock, folks.
Excellent.
Since the release of the Auditor General report, all that we've heard from the Prime Minister and several ministers is that people need to take responsibility. They've essentially put up a firewall between the government and the federal public service, in particular the agencies that are under fire. Now, to you, Ms. Hogan, the Auditor General, was part of your mandate, did it require you to uncover or ask for documentation to show what level of communication existed between the Prime Minister's office, the PCO, and various ministers that we've heard of today, and their departments?
So our mandate really is to look at how the federal public service takes action once a decision has been made by a government. So in this case, the decision to enact certain border measures, and then how was that operationalized? In the course of doing an audit like that, we might often see briefing material or so on. In this case, because there was such thin documentation, I would tell you that we saw some emails where the deputy minister was being made aware of things at the Canada Border Services Agency, but we saw no formal approval from the deputy there or no formal briefing to ministers. So I can't really speak on what happened between a deputy minister and a minister.
Okay, and that certainly applies to PHAC as well, that description you just gave?
Yes, we looked for it more at Canada Border Service Agency because they were doing the main contracting and development, yes.
But also PHAC. So, Ms. Jeffrey, I understand you've been in the role as Deputy Minister and President for just 1 year. Your predecessor, who was that?
My predecessor was Dr. Harpreet Kokar.
Okay. And did you consult, for preparing for this particular committee hearing, did you consult with your predecessor on details surrounding the ArriveCan?
No, I did not.
Okay. Was there a particular reason why you didn't?
I love how blunt he is. Amazing.
Brockman. And the look on his face, too, like, why?
Yeah.
Lady, why? Why would you not do that? Jeez.
Because the public servants who are responsible for the administration of this project and the rollout of the app continue to have functions in the department.
Sure, and ultimately, you now, as the Deputy Minister and President, are responsible for the entire department.
Yes.
Right? So you're in a position to answer any and all questions.
Yes.
So going back to my earlier round about communications and the frequency, it sounds like the Minister Haidu in particular, the PCO, who ultimately reports to the Prime Minister, were in regular contact with your predecessor and other officials within your department. Now, what I'd like you to produce to us, to this committee, and I'm going to ask it within perhaps 15 days or longer if the chair deems it appropriate, I'd like a calendar or some type of scheduling that would have existed at the time your predecessor was communicating to both Minister Haidu and the PCO. I want to know that frequency. You've indicated that it was fairly frequent. Could have been phone calls, it could have been emails, it could have been actual meetings. I'd like you to produce a schedule of all of those events. Will you do that?
So there was formal governance around the policy of the border measures, and certainly we can document that. But the decisions around the contracting and the governance of
I'm
the
talking
app
about your
rested with the public
communications. You
service.
must have some type of system that documents when you're going to have a meeting with a minister. That's a pretty important event.
I know what that's called. It's called email. It's a new system. Maybe to the government, but it's this magical thing where you can send a meeting request and then you get it back.
Or even just like a calendar app.
Like, come on. Like, I know the government. I know people that work for the government, and they use Microsoft products, which means that they use Outlook. And the last time I checked, Outlook has a calendar function. And it did back then, too. So, hello? Stop obfuscating, and let's get to it. Before we go any further, there's a couple of super chats I want to get to. And the first one is going to belong to Felon Kel with a $2 super chat. A10 Brock Hog goes... For those that don't get that reference, that's there's actually a warplane called an A-10 Warthog, and it carries lots and lots of weapons, and its specialization is tank busting. So, and it has like a big gun on it.
I imagine it would.
And that's what it sounds like. Paradoxy with a $50 super chat. Thank you so much for that. Hi all, finally caught up. Great stream as always at Fox Globe and Mail. GPHIN, Global Pandemic Health Intelligence Network. We had an alert system, pandemic plans. They were all tossed away suspiciously, in my opinion. That whole department was shut down in 2019. Well, isn't that convenient?
Interesting.
Isn't that convenient? Thank you very much for that, Paradoxy. We have Diagonal on Me with a $2 super chat. Let's go. Hashtag Mr. Bradford. A 420 hitter, a $2 super chat. 2 words from Mr. Brock. Due diligence. Yup. Rabu Sadies with a $5 super chat. So she is a mentally deficient selected to be the fall guy. Neat.
Oh no.
That's a Futurama reference in the end, maybe. All right.
Yeah, that's a meme we need. Bender with his camera.
You certainly don't just decide at a whim, I'm going to have a conversation, you don't document it. I'm asking for documentation to show the frequency of those meetings to Minister Haidu and the PCO. Will you provide that?
Is there a particular time period that...
I'm suggesting 15 days.
I think Ms. Jeffrey means time period in terms of the...
During the entire implementation of the ArriveCan.
There was a formal governance structure around COVID-19. Are you the specific governance structure around the app itself? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to seek clarification about what aspects of the COVID governance structure are being requested.
I'll make it very, very clear. Any and all communications, whether they be telephone, whether they be email, whether they be in person, surely must have been recorded and documented. I'm asking for proof of that documentation during the entire course of the ArriveCan implementation. This was the most pressing issue in your department and to Canadians from coast to coast.
Just hold on. I might have a point of order, Mr. Point of order, Ms. Yip, or
yeah,
is it?
Point of order.
Yes.
This is a really large production request.
So I'm with you. I'm going to let Mr. Brock finish, and then I'm going to interject to try to. I have the same concern you do, Mr. Brock. You got about 15 seconds left. I'm going to try to help you get through this, but why don't you finish up, and then we'll seek to resolve this.
So that's what I'm asking for. What type of documentation would have existed to record communications between you or your predecessor and Minister Haidu and the PCO?
Okay. Just let me, and Ms. Yip, if I missed where you are, you can jump in, Ms. Yip, on a point of order. You're really looking for, I think, you don't want, to Ms. Yip's point, communications, you want to know when meetings took place between, yes, okay, so let's focus on that. You kind of went out, it sounded like you wanted to go down the same path that Ms. Hogan had gone on by looking through communications, which is very, very broad. You're talking about meetings and who attended them in the departments that are involved. You mentioned CBSA, PHAC, and PCO.
Correct.
Okay. Is that something you'd be able to provide to the committee, the frequency of those meetings and when they occurred?
Yes, the frequency of meetings that occurred with CBSA, Public Health Agency, and PCO in regard to the ArriveCan app. Yes.
Thank you. I'll turn to you, Mr. You're good with that. That's No, so, you don't expand it, but go ahead.
No. I just want a clarification. Did that include Minister Haidu and the PCO? Your description?
Okay. So PCO was mentioned. Ministerial would be different. So I'm going to let you come back to that because you guys have you have another round. We have agreement on this, Ms. Yip. There is agreement, but you have the floor on a point of order if you like, and then I'm going to turn to you. You'll have the floor after your point of order.
Okay. So, well, first of all,
is this a point of order?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a lot of production documents.
I will stop. The witness has agreed to provide the documents. Normally, the committee looks for an answer in about 2 weeks, at which point we begin to make inquiries. But it has been agreed to from the minister. So, pardon me, from the witness. So, I need to know what your point of order is.
Oh, well, it would have been better if we could have had this discussion as a committee.
Well, okay, Ms. Yip, you now have the floor for 5 minutes. Over to you.
Okay.
What?
What?
That's ridiculous.
It would have been better if we could have this.
What's the problem? Witness says yes. All right, done.
Well, I didn't get to block anything, so
Yeah.
it would have been better to block it as a committee.
That's the real issue here, quote unquote real issue.
Yip got brocked. That's basically all there is to that. So, okay. So I've got to do some housekeeping here. Ryan Poplinski with a $2.79 super chat. Committee tables are in the shape of Brocktagon.
Very nice.
I love it. All right. Sounds like Miss Yip has the floor, but we're going to take that right out from under her. Stand by. Back to
Thank
NDP.
You have the floor for 2.5 minutes. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do want to now turn again to the last question I left off on, which was in relation to the non-competitive and the competitive process that was undertaken by the Public Health Agency of Canada in regards to GC strategies and KPMG. President of the Public Health Agency of Canada, you mentioned that the KPMG was selected amongst a list of vendors that was known to the agency as to the qualification reasons given in answering my question as to why that agency was selected. You responded that it was because of a list of known contractors. Can you supply that list of known contractors and when those known contractors were added to that list, in addition to how long that list has been operating?
This was a global professional services procurement vehicle established by PSPC, and they established the contracts with each of the 7 vendors.
Could you provide that to this committee, please?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And can you also, in addition to that, add the date to which those companies were added to that list?
This is probably a question that I would suggest you ask our PSPC officials, who I believe are appearing tomorrow in front of this committee. The Public Service Agency of Canada was not involved in establishing the list.
Thank you for that. I do appreciate the recommendation. However, it doesn't devoid your ministry or department of accountability when it was your department that was the business owner of this project, and you should have asked those questions to the Public Service Agency of Canada before operating those contracts. And so my final question is in relation to moving forward in terms of the Public Health Agency of Canada's operational work in regards to how it will manage future contracts. I think it's unfortunate that the Auditor General had to recommend such basic levels of qualification for good governance. And I would say those basic levels of qualification are important for me to ask now that you commit to the findings of the Auditor General. And would you also submit to the fact of following up with us in 1 year's time as to how you've implemented these recommendations of the Auditor General?
We have regular reporting requirements, and we will be reporting back on the management response to the Auditor General's report.
And do you have any last, I'll give you 10 seconds just remaining for any final comments you may have to this committee.
So
I'm not interested in final comments. Just saying.
For 10 seconds, she's just going to go, so like.
Right?
Yeah.
My final comment is that I would welcome the findings of the Auditor General's report that while it was an unprecedented emergency response to a global pandemic that had not been faced before by the agency, there were severe operational requirements for urgent response. There nonetheless is a requirement to document and to have in place governance. We have taken that lesson, and while I'm very proud of the response of the agency in terms of the services delivered to Canadians and in terms of protecting health and safety through the delivery of border services, vaccines, therapeutics, and other critical public health elements of the response. We can and will do better in terms of the governance put in place around these projects in the future going forward.
Thank you, witnesses, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you all very much. Mr. Brock, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
So it sounds like Fox was right. Just saying. Diane Sylvain with a $5 super chat.
I better shut the door. Hold on.
Diane Sylvain with a $5 super chat. We will not take no for an answer, Ms. Jeffries. We want all the evidence, all communications, forthwith. Bark, bark. Thanks.
Chihuahua voice. Back up from your mic.
Oh.
Back it on up.
Oh. All right.
We're just trying not to wake our son up.
We will not take no for an answer, Miss Jeffries. We want all the evidence, all communication, forthwith.
Amazing.
Merci. There you go. Now I understand why Fox went to shut the door.
Yep.
All right. Now we're on to Monsieur Lebrock.
Scam, boondoggle has to have consequences. It's little comfort to the Canadians who are watching this that you're going to do better the next time, that this pandemic was a once-in-a-lifetime issue. You had all the structures in place, and you failed to follow through. Your agency, the CBSA, PSPC, consequences. Apart from Cameron McDonald and Antonio Utano, have you suspended, with or without pay, any of your employees involved in this scandal? Yes or no?
No, there have been no findings of wrongdoing or investigations into Public Health Agency of Canada employees, and no employees have been suspended.
Right. You can only imagine the Canadian taxpayer who are going right now through organizing their taxes, Canadian businesses.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Oh, shut up, Khalid.
Yes, Ms. Khalid.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to figure out how long we are going on this meeting.
Yeah,
I do have other obligations.
Yeah, I'll answer you. Mr. Brock and then Ms. Bradford, and then we'll end it for the day.
Okay, thank you so very much. Appreciate that.
And you,
Brock,
and
you
you
have
have a
4 minutes
classic
left.
example how the Liberals want to deflect attention away from this.
Point of order
So
again,
Canadian
Mr.
tax-
Chair.
Okay,
I
hold-
was just trying to get clarification. I have other things going on throughout
wasn't a
my
point
day
of order.
to support my constituents. I am so sorry. I don't like to be blamed by the Conservatives for just trying to get to my constituents with a sham meeting that we have had right now.
All right, Ms. Khalid, thank you.
She's so concerned about getting to her constituents that she keeps interrupting. Just saying. Barnaby, control your lady.
Mr. Brock, you have the floor for 4 minutes, please.
Businesses and taxpayers are going through the tax process right now. One can only imagine the consequences to taxpayers and Canadian business owners for the shoddy way that your agency, the CBSA, and the PSPC documented their affairs. There would be consequences. The CRA would be levying consequences, if not calling in the authorities to potentially charge individuals. And all I'm hearing is, sorry, we'll do better. That's not good enough. Someone's got to take responsibility. It's clear you, ma'am, as a deputy minister and the president have to assume responsibility. You suspended nobody other than Cameron McDonald and Mr. Utano for speaking truth to power. Ultimately, the responsibility lies with this government. Minister Haidu, Minister Blair are all responsible for falling asleep
Point
at
of
the
order,
wheel.
Chair.
And the Prime Minister
Point
is
of
the
order,
ultimate
Chair.
person
Just
who's
1 second,
responsible.
Mr.
order, Chair.
Brock. Ms. Khalid, what's the point of order?
I'm not really sure why we are naming ministers without having any evidence or proof and blaming them for things
Ms. Khalid,
that
this is not a
they're
point of order.
available for.
There's a thing called ministerial responsibility in this country. You're well versed in it. As to your previous point of order, you can ask your whip or your committee chair, vice chair, where we are in the rotation. Ms. Yip had asked not 15 minutes ago when we were ending it. I was going to, and I told her. So your previous point of order did look like it was interrupting Mr. Brock, as does this one needlessly. Mr. Brock, you have the floor for 3 minutes. You keep interrupting Mr. Brock. I'm going to keep adding time to him so he can collect his thoughts and begin anew. 3 minutes, sir.
Wow, shut down.
Barnaby,
You can't fix her, man. I'm sorry.
take some lessons from Mr. John Williamson right there. Like, yeah, you keep doing that, then he keeps getting time. How about that? How about that? Like, shut your mouth. Like, she just doesn't like that Brock is naming the ministers. And it's like, well, there's no proof. The proof is when Trudeau actually gives them responsibility as the minister of these agencies.
That's it. It's like they said, it's called ministerial responsibility.
Like,
That means you're responsible for these departments.
yeah, don't like it, don't take the job.
Actually, the better word would be accountable, I think.
Yes,
you're
they are accountable
for these departments. So if something screws up on your watch, you might not have been the one to physically do it, but you're still accountable.
100%.
You see, Ms. Jeffrey, I won't be silenced. I speak on behalf of Canadians who demand the truth. Do you agree with me that the ministers and the Prime Minister need to step up and accept responsibility for this mess? Yes or no?
Oh, he's giving her an out. She's not going to take it because she's too dumb, but he's giving her an out. He's seriously giving her an out. To be able to say, well, yeah, it's not us, it's them.
Well, and before we get to the response, we have a few super chats. We have Stephen C. with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much. It says, Khalid's voice is like fingernails on the chalkboard of my spine.
Oh.
Ouch. I don't disagree, though. We have Peter Witten with a $20 super chat. Thank you very much. It says, authenticity and awareness, kindness, humility, and forgiveness. These are exciting times, people, and we are on the right path with all this intelligence and hope. I know it. Thank you to all of my newfound friends. Rest well. Oh, thank you very much. That was very kind.
Amazing super chat. Thank you so much, Peter.
And we have Digalon Meme with a $2 super chat. It says, let's go. Hashtag Mr. Brantford. That's right. Let's go. And we have from Nilok with the $2 super chat. It says Williamson is amazing. He definitely is, and he's definitely more amazing after that SmackDown.
Yeah, I may have to circle back to the Standing Committee of Public Accounts a little more
We
often.
might have to turn that into a short. That was awesome.
Yeah.
The governance of the ArriveCan project was managed within the public service, and as deputy head of the Public Health Agency, I take responsibility for its management.
Ceding my time to my colleague, Mr. McCauley.
That was strange. That was very strange, the way she said that.
Yeah, and also the way Brock passed the rest of his time to Macaulay, because Macaulay's not usually on this committee.
No, he's not. But
No.
She was told to say that. I would bet money on the fact that she was told to say that, because she didn't look happy to say that at all. You know, and maybe that kind of it percolates her entire presence at committee. Her disinterest, I wonder if she has been told that you're going to go in, you're going to basically assume responsibility with this, and you may end up being the fall guy here, or one of them. Because she has been completely disinterested in this whole thing.
Interesting theory. Very interesting.
Like if you look at her testimony in totality, she's not impressed, right?
No, she's just kind of like blasé, like meh, you know.
So she may have been told, you're going to go in there and you're going to be quiet, and we're going to give you a nice pension. We're going to give you a nice severance, but if it comes to that, but you're going to go in there and you're going to be a good little soldier. Okay, thank you very much.
Interesting theory.
420 hit her with a $2 super chat. I knew she talked to JT first. Yeah. And that might be, well, maybe not Justin Trudeau, but, you know, on behalf of. So that's interesting.
Thanks. Mr. Jeffrey, you made a comment that it seemed to state that the lack of governance was because of everything going on with procuring vaccines, therapies, and COVID, the issues around COVID. But earlier twice you stated it was a decision to relax the governance. So which is it? Is it, as you stated, that it was a specific decision made to relax the governance on this, or was it something else?
So just to clarify, I did not say it was a decision not to relax the governance. I said that the more flexible terms of the contract with KPMG were designed to provide flexibility.
This was about the entire governance, not specifically KPMG. It was about the entire governance of the ArriveCan process.
In fact,
twice there was a relaxation of the governance.
Mr. Chair, there was not a relaxation of the governance. I acknowledge that the governance was not documented or put in place from the outset of the project. However, that was rectified later as the project was implemented.
So your twice referencing relaxing governance was in reference to what?
I was speaking to the specific task that the Auditor General referenced in terms of the KPMG contract that she believed should have had more precise milestones.
Then to relax the governance on that specific issue?
To be clear, Mr. Chair, there was no decision to relax the governance around the ArriveCan app. It was an oversight that was later rectified in terms of the...
You specifically stated 3 times relaxation of governance. Who made the decision to relax that governance?
I don't know if I agree with Macaulay here.
Why not?
Because I don't think... So she talked about all the... Unless I missed it, all of the comments about relaxing governance was coming from, I believe, Mr. Barrett, and they were talking specifically about the KPMG contract, where Barrett went back to the Auditor General and said, "Did you not say, you know, that these requirements were reduced or relaxed?" And she said, "Yes." And then he went back to Jeffries and said, "So, you know, see, you know, she said that they were relaxed," and then Jeffries responded with, "Well, the requirements weren't reduced. They were broadened in order to allow for more flexibility. That's basically what she said. So I don't know if Macaulay's barking up the right tree here.
Mr. Chair, I did not believe I spoke to the relaxation of the governance, and certainly there was no decision that I'm aware of to relax the governance of the project.
About 30 seconds, Mr. McCauley.
Okay. The 177 updates to ArriveCan, who made those decisions to make those 177 updates? Were they driven by Order in Council? Were they driven by PHAC?
The majority of the updates were driven by the changes to the Order in Council as a result of the need to evolve and change the border measures under the Quarantine Act as a result of the evolution of the virus and the public health situation inside Canada.
So mostly driven by OIC?
Pardon?
Or mostly driven by Orders in Council?
Yes, the Orders in Council drove the changes to the app.
Thank you very much. That is your time. Finally, now to close it out, Ms. Bradford, you have the floor for up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the Auditor General. You determined that the government did not obtain the best value for money in procuring the ArriveCan application. What factors did you consider in coming to this conclusion?
So there were many factors. I think I'll list off just three quickly. One would be the continued reliance on an external vendor over time, when that is more costly than having the public service do some of the work. So we would have expected that something would have transitioned at some point to the public service. The second would have been that many of the contracts that we saw around GC Strategies and some of the other vendors consistently required the highest level of IT experience. So that experience being 10 years or more, when there was never a good justification for why that was always the level of experience needed. So you would have expected normally in a development project to see many different layers, levels of IT experience being needed. And I think finally I would point to contract extensions, multiple ones that we saw where the dollar value was increased and very, very few instances where deliverables were expanded. So all of those contributed, amongst other factors, to why we believe that the government did not get the best value for money and ultimately paid too much for the ArriveCan application.
Again, questions that were already asked and answered before. So one of the things that they were talking about, which is significant, I believe, is Macaulay asked, who made these decisions on the changing of requirements that would have required constant updates on the app, and he was saying Order in Council. So an Order in Council is a piece of, I'll say, it's not really legislation, but it kind of is legislation, and that is signed by the Governor in Council. That's basically Prime Minister. And so the requirements change, then they sign this Order in Council, and that is then signed by the Governor General, and then it takes legal effect immediately. So basically, if they're making any changes to the way things are happening at the border, the minister responsible for CBSA, which is the public safety minister, would make a recommendation to the Governor and Council, and then they would issue this order, and then it's signed, and then off it goes. So there's some involvement there in terms of the decision as it relates to these updates to the app. So that is not insignificant. Diane Sylvain with a $2 super chat. This is actually her retirement party.
Well, it can only hope.
Yeah, Geese with Teeth with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you so much for that. Osiris Gaming, nice to see you again with a $5 super chat. New interrogation tactic: put Freeland and Mrs. Point of Order in a room and have them complain for a few hours. Yeah, that'll do it. And everyone's ears will start bleeding as a result, no doubt.
Now, did you look into any other comparable projects in other jurisdictions?
No, we didn't set out to look at what other countries may have done when it came to similar types of apps to control their border measures. Border measures were very different in different countries or may have changed at different times. And we felt that it was important to focus on what the public service here was doing.
So getting back to the fact that they continue to use outside sources when maybe perhaps they could have, migrated to internal employees to reduce the costs and get better value for money?
Yes, Mr. Genuis, point of order, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to review the record before raising this. This is a very important meeting we're having with the Auditor General. Ms. Callie, during one of her points of order, so-called interventions, referred to it as a sham meeting. I think that's unparliamentary language, and I'm not sure why she considers this important meeting.
No, okay, Mr. Genuis, I would like to get back to Ms. Bradford.
I'm more than happy to comment about this, Mr. Chair.
No, I do not need a comment.
You and I both know, Mr. Chair, this meeting could have happened last week and not during a constituency week.
Oh, really?
Get her.
This is the watch to the end. Oh, wow. Goodness me. Oh, goodness me. You are opening Pandora's box there.
This isn't going to end well. Not for Khalid, anyway.
Oh, that pretty face. It's going away. Mr. Excuses with a $5 super chat. Waterboarding is always an option for straight
That's so bad.
Go Donnie with a $10 super chat. ArriveCan. I'm just seeing the reaction to the chat. ArriveCan. I can make a couple calls and have it developed and hosted overnight. I used to care about the letters I had after my name. I can reproduce Pixar with a call, not just a truckie. There you go. Oh my goodness.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Here comes the fun.
Oh yeah.
You better close the door, Fox.
Yes.
Stephen C with a $2 super chat. Khalid, open mouth, insert foot. Yeah, his whole leg's going in there.
Well, that is probably not true, Ms. Khalid, since the report just came down. I'd like to get back to Ms. Bradford. If government members have an issue coming in on a recess week, they can speak to their whip and seek reassignment. Ms. Bradford, you have the floor now. I'll give you extra time, up to 3 minutes, please.
So that was
No, but that's a good point because
that was chair for GTFO if you don't like it.
Yeah, because any MP in their caucus can be swapped out for the person that's there. Like at any point in time, I don't even know how much notice they need, but they're permitted to do it. So if you have a problem being there, then ask somebody else. Talk to your whip. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, you don't want to be here? GTFO. And that has nothing to do with funds in that acronym.
So how might the government reduce the reliance on external resources in a relatively short period of time while a project is ongoing?
Is that directed at
yes, I was continuing my question with you.
Well, here we were looking at the whole time between the development of the launch of the ArriveCan app, which was in early 2020, all the way till January of 2023. That's a few years' time. So I acknowledge, given the need for the assessment that was done by the Public Health Agency and the Canada Border Services Agency at the beginning, that they didn't have the skills and also the capacity at that time to do it. I would have eventually expected to see a transition in order to reduce that long-term reliance on an external vendor. Aspects like maintenance of the application. And what I think is missing here fundamentally in many of the IT contracts that we see in the public service is that acknowledgement that there needs to be a transfer of knowledge or skills at some point isn't there. And so, overdependence or reliance on a third party is created when the public service isn't looking to help transition and upskill the public service itself.
So finally, can you point to examples of best practices of a government increasing internal capacity for an ongoing outsourced project.
What?
You want example? Is that relevant right now?
What? Wait, are you seriously trying
filibustering
to impeach the Auditor General's testimony that the government should actually transition a external project so they can stop relying on an external vendor and reduce the overall cost of maintaining said project? Are you seriously? That's the angle of and the problem is Bradford's just reading this from a piece of paper. She doesn't even know what she's asking. She's Jenny Yip 2.0. But like seriously, that's what you're asking? Okay. That's ridiculous.
I'm not sure that I could speak to a best practice. I think it was very reasonable at the beginning of the pandemic to recognize that there was surge capacity that was needed. There was so much going on if we put ourselves back to early 2020, that it was reasonable to go to a third-party vendor, especially if the skills didn't exist. However, over a course of a few years, I would have then expected to see a rebalancing of those efforts between the public service and the contractor. And I believe Mr. Hayes would like to add something if you allow Mr. Chair a few minutes.
Thank you. The example that I would give is actually not our own, but it's the one from the Chief Information Officer who is departing the public service, I believe, and has now returned. She appeared before the committee in December talking about the importance of relying on external resources for transformation purposes, but that is not a long-term solution. Ultimately, the public service needs to then take over on the transformation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All done, Ms. Bradford. You do have 30 seconds.
No,
okay.
I finished my questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hogan, and your officials from the Office of the Auditor General, and Ms. Jeffrey, and officials from Public Health Agency of Canada for your testimony today and participation in this study. Appreciate you all coming in on a recess and making yourselves available to the committee. The committee will be meeting again tomorrow. I will address one issue. Parliament and committees can only meet so often during the course of the week because we allow virtual Parliament, which was a decision by Parliament. This allowed members to Zoom in like they have today on recess weeks. It also means that my time is limited when Parliament sits because I need to seek resources which are often not available, it seems, to opposition-led committee, but often are to government-led committee. I'll leave that for others to decide why that is. I chose to call a meeting today. I think it's been a productive meeting. Not only do we get through all our witnesses in the time, we also passed an motion that will feed into another joint study that this committee is looking at. We're meeting tomorrow. If members are concerned about not having enough meetings, I can schedule another one. I don't think that's necessary, though. But I will say I often hear from members that this committee both is doing too little and too much. Go faster, but at the same time, go slower. So on that, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Wow, what a finale.
Chair gets a mic drop right at the end, and no one gets to say anything. So...
good for him, though.
Yeah.
You know what? I would not want to be putting up with Khalid's hissy fits all freaking committee.
Well, and he revealed something to Canadians as well, that it seems that, resources to opposition chaired committees seem to disappear sometimes. Why would that be?
Why indeed?
And I bet that they don't disappear for opposition-led committees when, the study isn't really that important. I bet they get all the resources that they need. So, anyway, there you go. What a day. What a day,
Holy
folks.
Smokes.
Fox and I did not plan on dropping a video earlier today, but it happened.
Yeah, and thank you again to Platinum Sniper for pointing it out for us. We weren't exactly watching CPAC like hawks today, so it kind of came as a surprise to us, which was nice.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I was actually waiting for OGGO to start so I could see what was going on, because the meeting agenda had changed 3 times and all of this stuff. So, so then Fox was like, "Oh my God, you know."
Yeah, I came like running upstairs to the office. I was like, "We gotta record this. We gotta record this."
Yeah, so we did and got it out and made sure we got to inform you folks. But really good content today. So thank you to everybody actually who really helped. I'd say increase the entertainment value of the show. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, the chat was very spicy tonight. It was fun.
Great jokes, very witty. So thank you very much for that. Mr. Excuses had some real good zingers, so I had to call him out, and as well as a few other people. So thank you very much. Daniel with a $2.79 super chat. Khalid has some growing up to do.
Yes, she absolutely does. It's really honestly disgraceful the way she behaves in committee. Like, she behaves like a spoiled child.
She does.
Yeah, it's not appropriate for a parliamentary setting.
Yeah, she does. It's interesting because tomorrow there was supposed to be tomorrow is today.
Yeah, you're looking at the wrong day.
So
today is tomorrow.
So tomorrow night we will be doing a OGGO live stream where they will be calling Carolyn Maynard, who's the Information Commissioner of the Office of the Information Commissioner of Canada. So that should be an interesting one. I doubt it's going to be very hostile, but it's going to be more informative as to what's going on, and it's probably to do with all of the obfuscating that's going on in terms of getting evidence and emails and documentation from the different agencies. So I think that's going to be a very key committee. So we'll see how that goes. And we're going to keep our eye on the now Thursday meeting that didn't exist before this morning for OGGO, as that now has a to be determined witness. So we will see what happens, and if there's anything significant that is decided there, we will make sure to let you all know. Otherwise, thank you all.
Thank you, Sadie's with a $5 super chat. It says, "How is it possible for every time someone from the Liberal Party gets the floor, they seem to lose their turn using the brain cell?"
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess they're passing it around, right?
And they never have it at the right time.
So hopefully everybody enjoyed the stream. Thank you very much for all your contributions. Thanks for the almost 1,800 people that stuck with us through the whole time. And everyone take care. Have a safe and happy evening.
And thank you to Slugbutt231 with a $2 super chat. It says, following for a month. Thanks for dumbing it down. It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure to explain to everyone and to help everyone learn exactly what's going on in this government. The reason that government is so complicated is because they don't want us to know.
Yeah, it's intentionally complicated. That's why they create acronyms for everything. That's why they rename common household thing. You give them a plate, they'll make a new name for it, and you'll say why.
Like a food catcher or something weird.
Yeah.
They're complicated on purpose.
So we are happy to be the translators for that, because Canadians need to know and have a right to know how their government actually operates, because an informed voter is a dangerous voter to its government, and governments should always fear their constituents, because those are the people that are going to hold them to account.
Yeah, we're the people in charge, not the people in Ottawa. It's us.
Diane Sylvain with a last-minute $5 super chat. What does a member have to do to get kicked out of committee?
I'm not sure. Probably something pretty bad.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen that happen, to be truthful. Like, they'll do it in... we've seen it in the House where someone will... It was Damien Carrick. He kept calling the Prime Minister a liar and wouldn't apologize. So they named him and they kicked him out. But I've never seen it happen in committee.
Yeah.
Probably something like that, though, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Anyhow, if you're interested in the link for any of these streams, they will be in the description. May have to go and add a few back to the previous ones. I'll have to check. But if you want to just see it raw, it will be in the description of this video, probably at some point tomorrow. So with that, Everyone have a wonderful night. We'll see you in the comments, and meet us back at 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow for our next ArriveCan live stream. Until then, have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.